welcome to the Kongversation. I'm Hyle Russell, and it's been quite a week here at DK Vine and in the Donkey Kong universe fan community. And as I often do when there's a big story or potential story breaking, I like to break the glass that houses my guest host for this episode. I like to free Josh the Geek Critique Wallen and have him on the conversation. So welcome back, Josh.
Who dares disturb my slumber?
I did. I just said I did.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Welcome back to the conversation. It's been a while, Josh. Been so long that I haven't properly publicly congratulated you on your recent nuptials.
Oh, well, thank you. I don't know how I got married. I've been holed up in the Kongversation office bathroom since we recorded our last episode a mere 13, 14 months ago.
Yeah, but, I mean, that is a popular hookup spot in the DK Vine offices, so it makes sense to me, but no, it was either you or breaking out Malik the cartoon gamer, McLeod.
No, honestly, Malik and I should probably just trade YouTube channels. Like, the Geek Critique would rhyme with his name anyway, so...
Right, yeah, I almost stumbled there. Yeah, I almost stumbled there, but I think I'll have Malik on when this rumor becomes a reality. Then that would be a good time maybe to bring Malik in. But no, it's good to have you here, Josh. It's been a weird few days for me as someone who has realized as he's gotten older just how much his parents screwed him up when he was a kid. Because, we all have things, right? We all have mental health issues, especially after the last year. I think everybody's kind of cognizant of that. But we all have various levels of anxiety and, depression and other battles. It's something everybody should feel free to talk about. And I found that as I get older, I definitely, in certain contexts, have some sort of social anxiety disorder where when I'm in, say, a busy grocery store, for example, just buying Gushers and carbonated water and Boulder Rock hard cider, I feel like I'm in everybody's way. I feel like everybody is looking at me like, look at this fucking weirdo. Get out of my way. Why are you in my way? And then I realized, reflecting back on my childhood, being the only child in my family, I remember there were times when my mom would apologize for me for being in people's way. And this memory that's kind of come about, I was like, oh, so that could be why I always feel like I don't belong or fit into any social setting, and I feel super awkward and guilty about it. And I say all this because this whole week for me has been I am standing in the middle of a grocery store kind of moment where all of Nintendo fandom that's gathered online is now looking at DK Vine and what we're saying. And I'm like, oh, don't look at me. I haven't combed my hair. And I'm wearing baggy pants that don't really fit me because it's laundry day. And this is what I decided to wear, going out to get my groceries. Oh, please look away. So I'm definitely working through something right now. And when you do this, when you create content in any capacity online, you have the expectation that people are going to look at you, but you cultivate your own audience. And when strangers are finding you for the first time, that's when the weird thoughts kick in, Josh. And so I'm all right. I braved the grocery store and I did get my hard cider, so that's helping me a little bit.
Well, that's good. That's good to hear, man. I can definitely relate to what you're talking about, both on a couple of levels. One being as somebody who creates something, as somebody who has a public persona on the internet, I do notice myself becoming at times too aware of, I guess, the kind of effect that I might have on a discussion or a zeitgeist or like, you know, just the way that things go. And I definitely notice, like, I've sort of had to come to terms with the fact that, you know, being on the internet, especially, there are always going to be people who are just determined to misinterpret you, if that makes sense.
Oh, misinterpreting news, that's also something I've dealt with this week. So we'll get into that. No, but really quick, I just want to plug the Geek Critique. So if you're listening to this, you've already listened to the Kongversation or the Geek Critique, or, you know, you've just found DK Vine this week because we've been linked by Nintendo Life and other outlets. But if you're not familiar with the Geek Critique, it is a YouTube channel that I highly recommend. It is basically the best analysis of video games, but specifically video game fandoms that I've ever seen ever on any platform. I think that I find it so endearing because you, Josh, you focus really on, as best you can, the positive aspects of fandom, why we naturally gravitate towards being fans of things. And as I've often said when complimenting you, you make me see the appeal in something I'm not necessarily a fan of. I didn't really understand Sonic the Hedgehog until you explained to me what makes Sonic magical. Really the same with Metroid. Your excellent Metroid Prime series, really the whole Metroid series, but Metroid Prime I'm singling out. Just fantastic pieces of work. Really feature-length entertainment.
That was really fun for me too, because like I was discovering what made them magical in real time myself. For that matter, I still don't understand Sonic the Hedgehog, so I'm glad that you feel like you do.
No, but it's feature-length entertainment that celebrates the best of gaming, or really the best that gaming can bring out in us. And I think so often, you know, the online discourse and the gaming world focuses on the negative. And that's really been something I've tried to steer DK Vine away from in the last several years. And you were doing that before I was. So I just really recommend it. It's feel good YouTube. And it doesn't matter what you're a fan of, just watch any of Josh's videos and you will become enthralled. So check that out, the Geek Critique.
No, and I know we've talked about this before, but it's kind of one of those things where, like, I almost feel like it's a symbiotic relationship, because so much of my perception and my idea of online fandom came out of DK Vine itself as, like, one of the primary, like, places I considered myself, like, maybe not always a part of the community because I lurked a lot, but just I was always there and I was always paying attention. And I like, to this day, like, after 20 years or so of this, like, I still, like, almost naturally go up to my address bar and type in dkvine.com. Like I'm still checking it like I was on AOL in, like, 2001.
A lot of people are doing that this week, and that's why our page crashed 20 times in one day. But no, I appreciate it. It's awkward having a website that's been around since 1999, because the website has grown up with me, and I am not necessarily proud of the person I used to be or the way I would wear that fandom. And I kind of, like, grew up, and the site took a little bit longer to grow up with me. And so I feel like we're kind of in sync now. And my biggest thing about DK Vine is, you know, what I believe, you know, you espouse is positive gaming, positive fandom, and really, like, celebrating what brings us together rather than what drives us apart. And part of that, I really do believe, is, you know, making the best out of periods of time where we're not really getting a whole lot new stuff to talk about. I feel like that's really when DK Vine shines, is when those, like, E3s of the past, where we would walk in with all the expectations in the world and we would get nothing. And so we would just kind of have to make our own fun. And there was a lot of bitterness in those days, sure. But, I really like, and DK Vine, we're fortunate too, because we're not just Donkey Kong. If you're new to DK Vine, you're like, how does a Donkey Kong website work when you haven't had a new game in 7 years? It's not just, it's the whole Donkey Kong universe. So that includes Rare and Playtonic. So really, there's always something for us to talk about, and it kind of ebbs and flows. Like, there will be Donkey Kong heavy periods, and then, Rare will come roaring back, and we'll be like all about Rare for a long time. And then Playtonic will release something, and then I'm just making Vendy jokes for a year straight. So it's just, it's fortunate that we've developed this kind of notion of fandom that is a little bit more broad, but it's still very insular and narrow in its focus. It's what I really love too about DK Vine is that it can like stick one of its feet in the mainstream and also stick the other foot in the very, very obscure and feel comfortable in both. I would not be able to handle like a Super Mario website or a Pokemon website. It would just be like, well, what voice do I have to add to this fandom? Really nothing, because it's so big. It's so like universally like mainstream that I like that everything we do at DK Vine is just slightly under the radar, just a bit. It's fun.
And for that matter, like something like the Pokemon fandom is also just eternally refreshing. So like you've always got like brand new people. Like every new game is in some ways rather different from the last, and that always like and like new kids are always getting on board with it, which always like leads to some interesting discourse down the road.
And here, I think in the Donkey Kong fandom, more or less, we welcome that because it's kind of a rare case to get those infusions of new blood. So, like, we've got the Donkey Kong Country Returns babies who are like, Professor Chops, and it's just like, yeah. And of course, the Donkey Kong Country Returns babies are, they're all old enough to drink now, probably. So
they're the age that we were when Donkey Kong Country Returns was released. Yes.
Oh God. But anyway, I'm saying all this because part of my mantra of DK Vine is to really like lift people up. Never wallow in despair, because I feel like there's no point in it, and I feel like everything usually breaks our way. And even with things like getting K. Rool in a Smash, I feel like K. Rool really didn't come our way until we kind of celebrated the notion of K. Rool rather than really wringed our hands about the lack of K. Rool, if that makes any sense.
And like that's the thing. Like I don't think like it's so common in fandoms, and I like maybe this is just my perception. Like you talked about anxiety and depression and the pandemic. Like, to be honest with you, I don't think I ever really like I understood like what anxiety was, but I don't think I had ever really experienced it myself to any degree, or at least to any significant degree, until this past year. Yeah. And I think that a lot of people have been like, I think one thing I've really become more aware of over the past year is like people, I think, like being forced to spend more time like in lockdown and in quarantine and having to stay inside. That made your online life seem way more important than it had before. And I think there were a lot of people who sort of took those anxieties and like dug their heels in on things. And like, because that's just, it's so common in fandom that what people do is just they dig their heels in and they go on and on and on about how this isn't what we want. This isn't, we're never going to get what we want. They're never going to make it the way that they used to again. They're never going to,
Yeah.
And so I think that's something that's always like having gone through that experience, I know that, me saying this is no cure for anything, but I do want to reassure you that like, the way that people, with all these new eyes on DK Vine and on your platform, like I really don't think you have anything to like worry about or like think poorly of yourself for, because like, you know, I mean, I saw Nintendo Life say it the other day, like highly respected fan site DK Vine, you know?
Yeah, that really made me give out a loud cackle of self-deprecation. Yeah. So, but I think that like but the point I'm trying to get around to is that part of me trying to like really make the fandom feel good about itself is not unnecessarily raising expectations. Mm-hmm. And that's why with the info, rumors, however you want to distill it, that I've been handed from my sources, plural, over the past, couple of years, I've never really come out and really did a write-up about it. Like, hey, here's what I've heard about Nintendo EPD developing Donkey Kong. Have I talked about it on the Kongversation? Yeah. Have I tweeted about it in kind of vaguish terms? Sure. And I do that because sometimes I feel like, the community needs the reassurance that, hey, we've got good things coming our way. When I feel like despair is setting in, I really do want to like reassure people. But here's the thing, Josh, I'm not what you would call a leaker. I'm not somebody who eternally chases like big scoops and tries to suss out, hey, this is what this studio is working on. Surprise, I was first. I credit me. I'm responsible for bringing this game to you. I deserve all the credit. Like, that's not like my thing. That's exhausting to me. That's that whole like underbelly. Like, no disrespect to anybody who lives and thrives in that world, but that's just not who I am. And because what if you're wrong? What if something happens behind the scenes? What if a project gets scuttled? What if something happens and then all of a sudden you've raised everybody's hopes and then it just hurts all the more when it's taken from you? We as a DKU community know what that feels like with things like Donkey Kong Racing, where we have this game actually announced. There's a trailer. It's on the back of the GameCube box. It's the most amazing thing we could have ever hoped for. And then it never happens. And we're left eternally longing for something that was basically just vaporware. So that being said, I just say this because I want to boost people's morale and get their hopes up, but I also am worried that everybody is going to be thinking that this game is going to be announced at E3 now. and sure. I'm just like, we'll get into it. There's a multitude of factors at work here that, it may or may not be revealed at E3, but I feel like everybody's just talked themselves into it now that, yeah, this is coming at E3. This is going to be Nintendo's big reveal at E3. And I'm just like, it might not be though. So I trust my sources. I believe this game is happening. So let's just get into it. I feel like I'm beating around the bush here, and trying to really explain my neuroses at the moment. But all right. So Josh, this story actually comes back around to one of the more infamous episodes you've been on. So it was August 2018. And K. Rool had been revealed for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, which took me by surprise, took a lot of people by surprise. It just bowled us over, right? So later that day, I got a message from a major DK Vine source that I've talked about over the years. We call them Dave Throat. Dave Throat sent me a message basically explaining how K. Rool and Smash came to be, that K. Rool effectively won the Smash ballot and Nintendo wasn't expecting it, and it completely took them off guard and by surprise, the amount of support and fandom K. Rool had. And anyway, so this is how K. Rool got into Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. But Dave Throat also said that this was really like the first phase of Nintendo's plans for Donkey Kong. And I didn't know what that really meant at the time, other than, well, they got plans for Donkey Kong. But this really kicked into gear a couple of years of info being leaked my way, and others have heard this info too, and it's really that starting around maybe late 2017, early 2018, the decision was made to bring Donkey Kong back home, effectively. Nintendo EPD, the main studio of Nintendo in Japan, the ones behind your Super Mario games, your Splatoon, Animal Crossing, etc., etc. There was a push to bring Donkey Kong back into Nintendo EPD, which used to be Nintendo EAD before they merged departments. Nintendo EAD, of course, did Donkey Kong Jungle Beat in the mid-aughts. And but now this would be more of a permanent thing where they would take on Donkey Kong after Retro Studios. And really, this makes sense. I mean, this rumor that's been going around, I'm not sure why so many people are surprised by it, because, you know, there's a cliche, an old hoary platitude that we always like to go back to here on the conversation. It's called reading the tea leaves. And if you read the tea leaves, I think this is pretty transparent that this is happening, and I'm not sure why everybody is shocked by it. I think the people who are shocked most by it are the types of fans, and I don't want to disparage anybody, Josh, but I feel like there are fans who entirely predict things based on things that have already happened, right? So I've heard a lot about, over the past few months, when the common refrains where I've hinted towards a new Donkey Kong game is, well, how could there be a new Donkey Kong game in the works? Retro is doing Metroid Prime 4.
I know. I've seen that too. Like,
yeah, the studio
do you guys
that
think
does
that nobody
Donkey
else
Kong,
is capable?
Yeah, right. The studio that has made the last two Donkey Kong games is doing something else, so there can't be a Donkey Kong game coming out. It reminds me of like a baby, like like object permanence, like. I
don't mean to disparage anyone, but you guys are babies.
No. Okay, that really sounded condescending. I apologize. But no, it's just like playing the peekaboo game and then thinking your parents vanish because you can't see them. I mean, it's...
Well, listen, Hyle, you keep talking about, a Donkey Kong game is going to be on the N64, but like, the last three were on Super Nintendo. Come on. What do you mean?
Granted, that's hyperbolic, but yes, I mean, point taken. Yeah. So is comparing them to babies. No, but it's often the same thing. I think this is just a thing in fan cultures, like geek culture in general, where thinking outside the box even a little bit is kind of hard to do in the fast-paced world of online discourse and discussion. It's like fan casting your favorite superhero movies. You like, I feel like fans. I remember. In the mid to late aughts, like Nathan Fillion would always come up in these superhero fan castings because he was already in genre television like Firefly, and so fans just fan casted him and everything. Oh, he should be Green Lantern. He should be he should be Batman. He should be this and he should be that. And it's like on the flip side of that, Heath Ledger getting cast as a Joker, right? Well, I've never thought of Heath Ledger in a role like this, so therefore it's shit. It's shit. It's going to be shit. Hashtag not my Joker. And, of course, that became an Oscar-winning role for him, and the role he'll always be defined by. So it's kind of like the same thing. I've never really thought about Nintendo EPD doing Donkey Kong, so therefore they can't be doing Donkey Kong. Well, right?
I think that sort of thing also probably comes out of people. When you brought this up, you're like, well, you see fans saying this, but it may be the case that like it's more that some of these people aren't fans, and that they'd rather like there not be a new Donkey Kong game, or at least they'd rather there not be a new Donkey Kong game not made by Retro, because we know Retro can do it. Like one of those two things, because if there's a rumor that disagrees with you, or that you don't want to happen, or that you don't want to see, I think you're going to be a lot more inclined to look for reasons to disprove it.
Yeah, and I think too there is a like there's different segments of Nintendo fandom, right? And I feel like Donkey Kong fandom isn't always really grouped in with Nintendo fandom, and a lot of online Nintendo fandom. has its roots in the GameCube era. So I think it makes sense. Yeah, I think that would make sense why Donkey Kong doesn't have a strong presence, why Donkey Kong has really been more adopted by the Rare fandom, which, DK Vine, of course, has a part playing in that. I mean, we are the biggest Donkey Kong fans. I don't feel like I'm overstepping my boundaries when I say that.
Not in the slightest.
DKC Atlas, is also another highly respected site, but they have a more insular focus on the Donkey Kong Country games. And whereas we cover basically, everything Donkey Kong, everything with Rare's Donkey Kong, and also everything that spins out of Rare's Donkey Kong, which is just a whole lot of games with a goldfish in it. So it gets kind of like, wait, how does this tie back to Donkey Kong? Wait, these 3 Star Fox games tie in, but the rest don't. What? But yeah, it is what it is. But I think that, like, in our corners of Nintendo fandom, it's more Nintendo and Rare and Playtonic, whereas, then you've got the more hardcore Nintendo fans who don't really think of Donkey Kong anything more as this thing that Retro Studios occasionally does, and this character who fills roster spots in Mario games, but who cares because he's not Waluigi. So yeah. we're not going to talk about
Oh my god,
him.
I will never understand I thought you guys were being ironic about how much you loved Waluigi.
I feel like meme culture eventually just it starts as a joke, but then you just talk yourself into loving something. I think that's why Lanky Kong has had this kind of mid-level resurgence even without any game appearances over the last decade. It's just because meme culture kind of sank their teeth into him. Him and Funky.
I've sort of had that experience with all kinds of things in the past couple of years. A good example of that is probably like the Star Wars prequels, where I'm like, haha, people are pretending like they love the Star Wars prequels, and then over time I'm like, oh, huh, I think they're serious.
Yeah, and as I tell people who hate the Star Wars sequels, I'm like, just give it 15 years, and then the people who grew up with those are going to be telling you about how they're misunderstood works of genius.
Exactly.
And you're wrong. And that's what I find that shit fascinating, though, Josh. I'm not complaining. I love that shit because I try to I try to detach myself from being this grizzled old gatekeeper of fandom. I welcome youth spilling into my fan culture because it brings fresh ideas and perspectives, and it lets me change my thinking. And it really allows the perseverance and evolution of your favorite thing. And nothing can remain stagnant forever, or else it will wither and die. So as much as I might hate to see things evolve past the point where, it's not the way I remember it when I was a kid, it kind of has to, right? Tastes change, and the only thing that's permanent is impermanence. I just made that up because I'm a genius. But I think that you've got this subsection of Nintendo fandom that Donkey Kong games, Donkey Kong Country Returns, was all right, that's a one-off. We'll let you have that retro. Tropical Freeze came around. It's why aren't you making Metroid games retro? The Wii U is dying here when it could be competing with the PS4 and Xbox One if you just gave us a Metroid game. And then, then of course time passes, and then the stakes are lowered when the Switch is a massive success. And then, Tropical Freeze has this massive critical reevaluation. Great. But to this subset of Nintendo fans, Donkey Kong is nothing. It's really nothing more than this also ran not even a franchise. It's just something that maybe once in a generation we'll have a game, and we'll kind of allow it, even if we're not that interested in it.
I think part of the issue too is, and maybe you can speak to this more than I can. Maybe having noticed, being more plugged into the Donkey Kong fandom specifically, but I feel like Returns and Tropical Freeze both were so, and I mean I love both of those games, as you will know. But I think that they were both they were more focused on bringing the magic back again for the sake of older fans than they were in really making new fans. I don't know, especially because Returns was such a late release Wii game, and Tropical Freeze came out on the Wii U, which, not a whole lot of people bought. And just because of their sheer difficulty, which was very uncommon by 2010. I do sort of wonder, like, I don't know if Returns and Tropical Freeze specifically really brought us like the kind of newbie boom that the original DKC trilogy did.
Yeah, I know, like, anecdotally, Returns did bring in a lot of people to the fandom, but I also know that a lot of younger kids who played it, like, didn't really make it far, because of that difficulty level.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, this too is anecdotal, but I remember when I was making, I believe, the episode on Returns, I talked to a dad in a GameStop, I believe, about it, and he said his kid got it and played it like one time because he couldn't even finish the first level.
Yeah. So anyway, I think part of the problem too, though, is, we're relying on two games in a decade's time to really be like the thing that keeps Donkey Kong this celebrated pillar of Nintendo, and it's just not enough, right? Donkey Kong has not had stability in almost 20 years time, and even when we were getting a lot of games, ironically, it was the buyout era, the much maligned at the time buyout era. That's when we were getting the biggest glut of games. It felt like, maybe not annual releases, but we were getting annual releases in some form or fashion, because we were getting the Game Boy Advance remakes by Rare. But then we also had the 3 pay-on games for the Game Boy Advance, Nintendo DS, and ultimately Wii. We had the Namco Donkey Konga series, which, yeah, and then we had Jungle Beat, but, just a lot of games but really nothing no concrete identity for the series.
Now, Hyle, I think you're understating the near monthly releases of Mario Party. That was very stable.
I'm not including cameo games in any of this. I know, yeah. But so I think the biggest problem, right, has been that lack of stability. Retro, we like in 2010, when it was rumored a couple days before E3 that, hey, Retro is working on Donkey Kong. Psst. That really like reinvigorated the fandom, because by 2010 we were feeling defeated and deflated, because it wasn't just Donkey Kong that it felt like Donkey Kong was kind of dead at that point, but also it felt like Rare might be dying, and this was like just the darkest moment for the fandom, where like we were probably going to let DK Vine shut down completely. Like, it's like, what's the point? It's just, we're moving on with our lives. Like nothing more to see here. So Returns really came at the right moment, and it's like it was a shot of energy into our veins. And I remember the hope at the time was that this is the beginning of something where like we're going to get maybe not annual releases anymore, because that's not even really a thing in the industry, unless you're like this big AAA franchise that gets all of its resources pulled into, like Call of Duty. But maybe we're gonna get a new Donkey Kong Country game every 2 to 3 years now, and of course that didn't really happen. And so that's why this rumor, Josh, is so not only tantalized. I say rumor as if I haven't been sourced on it myself. I'm just speaking in general terms of what's going around online this week, because this week has been the week.
I did notice, like, at the top of the episode, you said, like, I'll have Malik on when this is confirmed, when this rumor, when this becomes true.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about this rumor, Josh, is that we've been talking about it on the Kongversation for a good long while now.
Yeah,
but I haven't done an episode about it so much. I haven't done a fully dedicated episode about, hey, this is, I mean, because again, I didn't want to raise people's expectations for any particular time. But this week, a couple things started happening, and really the ball got rolling earlier this year, because other people have been getting sourced on this. And some notable names, including John Cartwright, Nate the Hate, Zippo, and Lonely Goomba. And it was the latter two leakers. Leakers sounds like, I don't know, you're like in a diaper commercial. It doesn't sound like it's a weird term to use outside of any context but talking about this. But these leakers talked about it in the last week, and that's when really we were off to the races, because then, you know, it like lit up message boards and Discord channels, and then Nintendo Life ran a news story about it on Wednesday morning. Nintendo Life, they're a UK outlet that, you know, they're very, very popular. One of the bigger Nintendo dedicated sites around these days. And so Nintendo Life did a news story about it. And of course they're in the UK, so I think it like posts at 3 a.m. So it was like first thing in the work hours over in the UK, but over here I was fast asleep. So I woke up to like checked my phone, checked DK Vine's Twitter, and saw all these notifications. And I was like, shit, what happened? And then I saw, and I was like, all right. So I got a shower. I was beginning my DK Vine work day, and I was like, I should probably do an article about this on DK Vine, because at this point it's out there. And it's out there coming from people who aren't me. So I feel like, you know, never wanting to play the leak game, I'm not going to do something until it's already out there. But I'm like, all right, I see a lot of conflicting information. At the very least, I need to come forward with what I've been told. And so I wrote an article on DK Vine, basically, and in my long-winded fashion, and didn't just discuss the rumor, it discussed the history of Donkey Kong's development since 1993. But that article was then quickly picked up by the message boards and Discord channels, and then the very next day,
that was a really like succinct and enlightening article. By the way, I enjoyed reading it. I did. Oh,
you think it was succinct? Okay.
I mean, it's a succinct like way to sum up like everything that's happened surrounding this. It's just sort of like, I did have to click the reload button several times in order for it to load.
Yeah, because at this point, sites like Reset Era were sharing it, and it was just being shared and shared and shared, and our servers apparently couldn't handle it. And by the next morning, Nintendo Life updated their article and included our take on the so-called highly respected Donkey Kong fan site. And really, I think of myself more as a Donkey Kong lifestyle brand, so I really don't like the fan site branding at this point. So, like, let me discuss a little bit, really, this rumor in full here on the conversation, because there is fire here. It's not just smoke. There is definitely fire here. And this is everything based on what I've been told by my sources, and we'll just call them Dave Throat and the Funky Bunch. That's how I will refer to my plural sources. So, development of the new Donkey Kong game, Josh, purportedly, from my understanding, began late 2017 or sometime in 2018. That's when they decided to bring Donkey Kong under the Nintendo EPD banner. And this was mostly done, it wasn't just, well, there hasn't been a new Donkey Kong game in like 4 years. We really should think about making a Donkey Kong game. Nobody else is going to do it, so we're going to do it. It wasn't quite that simple. There's a reason there hasn't been a Donkey Kong game in 4 years. And honestly, I thought this part of the story would blow up a little bit more. And it's really, I don't even know if it was shared on Nintendo Life, because maybe, you know, it's just coming from the wacky old DK Vine, so it's unverified. But there was a Donkey Kong game in development between Tropical Freeze and this game we're talking about today. And I can't share quite a lot about it. I'm sorry. Do I know more than I'm letting on? Probably. But I can't, because there are things I can share and there are things I can't share. All I can share about this is that this made a lot of headway. This was going to be a Donkey Kong game for the Switch. And ultimately, I'm not really clear on why they decided to end the project, but Nintendo decided they were going to bring Donkey Kong back internally, and that really put the kibosh on it. Rather than just letting this project play out through this outside studio, not Retro Studios, by the way. By this point, Retro was floundering with their own Post-Tropical Freeze project before they were put on Metroid Prime 4. And
I was going to ask, so this was not an internally developed game. This was also
not
by
internally
an outside
developed.
studio.
Yes, not internally developed at Nintendo, not done under Nintendo's purview by Retro. This was an outside studio, and it sounded interesting. There are things about it that, it might take a little while for my brain to wrap around, but I like what I hear about mechanics. There are some exciting things in there. One day the story can be told about this game, and I look forward to that day because I have a lot I would like to share. But Nintendo basically decided that they wanted Donkey Kong to be not a homeless couch surfer that continually bounce from studio to studio, getting a reinvention seemingly every console generation. They wanted consistency. They wanted to basically do it themselves. There was a push. Of course, Miyamoto's always wanting something in the works for Donkey Kong. And that's something that I think a lot of Donkey Kong fans don't even understand about Miyamoto. Miyamoto loves Donkey Kong, and he has a bigger view of Donkey Kong than a lot of Donkey Kong Country purists even admit to themselves, because Miyamoto has really accepted that the identity of Donkey Kong is basically what Rare created, and he's kind of rolled with it. I mean, it's not just my vision of Donkey Kong is this girder-dwelling barrel thrower who kidnaps Brooklynite women and then gets himself locked in cages and then maybe has skirmishes with exterminators. He's really embraced Rare's Donkey Kong. And, we talked about it on the Kongversation last year, that there was even a Donkey Kong game in the works before Donkey Kong Country. That became Yoshi's Island, we now know, thanks to those Nintendo leaks. Mm-hmm. And then it was Rare's pitch with their advanced computer modeling graphics that really made them decide to give Rare Donkey Kong after, a couple what should they do? Maybe a Wario game, Donkey Kong versus Wario, Donkey Kong. We'll just do Donkey Kong. And then the game that was in the works by the Yoshi's Island team became Yoshi's Island. But in some ways, history kind of repeats, because now we have an outside studio doing Donkey Kong, and then Nintendo decides to bring it back internally. We've kind of come full circle here, right? But
yeah, and just as much, we've also had, if you look at the time frame between Donkey Kong 3, the arcade game, and Donkey Kong Country, we've also had about as long of a hiatus where the brand's sort of been on hold.
Yeah. And that's really, it's not been, every fallow period for Donkey Kong has not been without reason. So, 93, they were developing this, Super Donkey Kong game. Then it became Donkey Kong Country. Then Rare had the reins of the franchise, in full, through 2002. 2003 hits, they're now with Microsoft. And then we kind of have what I call the Donkey Kong Cold War, where everybody's trying to do their own take on Donkey Kong. We had, Namco with their bongo peripheral fueled party games. We had Payon with their fan servicey peg swingers. We had Mario vs. Donkey Kong, which started off as an arcade revival, where Donkey Kong is straight up a villain against Mario again. We also had Rare doing their Game Boy Advance remakes. So Rare still had a say in Donkey Kong's direction, which we'll come back around to. And then Nintendo EAD basically just reinvented Donkey Kong Country if it were to be created by Nintendo and did Donkey Kong Jungle Beat. And, a lot has been said about Donkey Kong Jungle Beat over the years. And, of course, we now know that the one-to-one character replacements in the game, Hoofer instead of Rambi, Orko instead of Engard, that was all done with the best of intentions, even if those intentions are immeasurably frustrating for any Nintendo fan who celebrates characters and lore over intercompany politics.
Sure.
Nintendo... And
that's kind of another perfect one of those examples of where, you hate this now, but give it 15 years.
Yes. And granted, Jungle Beat is a fun game. Not my preferred take on what Donkey Kong should be, but as a one-off, it was a lot of fun. And, I think the fear of Jungle Beat at the time was they're replacing what we love.
Yeah,
they're
exactly.
even trying to get rid of Diddy Kong. And when you don't have any of this history already behind you, that uncertainty is very paralyzing, and it makes you feel like your own childhood is under assault. Mm-hmm. And not only is it like you don't have this history behind you, but you don't have the life experience to really navigate this. And so, it seems silly now, as someone well into his 30s, but back then it was like, what are you doing? What are you doing to my beloved childhood property that really got me through those tough adolescent years?
Yeah, you take it personally. And for that matter, if somehow Hyle from 2021 could have come up to you then in 2005 and been like, "Listen, it's gonna be okay. This is what this means. It's not like he wouldn't have that wouldn't have changed anything,
Probably not.
He still would have felt the same way about it.
Yeah. And we know now too how Nintendo operates, and I always bring this up, but it's why Wario is barely in any mainline Super Mario games outside of Super Mario 64 DS, and that's because there is this culture of respect within Nintendo where, hey, your team didn't create this character, you probably shouldn't use this character, and that's thrown out the window for things like Mario Kart or party games or things developed by outside studios. But under the purview of Nintendo, it's like, all right, well, what characters really need to be in this? And then after that, let's just create our own characters for it because we're a different studio. You see it all the time with Mario. I mean, that's why Super Mario Land was so different from Super Mario Brothers, because it was a different team. That's why, going down the list here, fans want Waluigi in Wario games. And Waluigi doesn't appear in Wario games because he wasn't invented by the Wario team. And it's just like, are you kidding? You own these characters. Why can't you put Waluigi in a Wario game? But that's why. And it's just this very, very frustrating culture for fans. But it makes sense from their perspective, even if I would argue that they just kind of need to get over it or just ask permission. Or it's like, okay, so it would be like not putting the Guardians of the Galaxy in the Avengers movies because, well, those are James Gunn's babies. We can't have them. And shared universe be damned. Let's just ignore the Guardians and create our own spacefaring team in these two movies. I know they brought in James.
It is strange, but at the same time, I kind of feel like, you brought up Super Mario Land. And looking at it, one of the things that I think makes the Game Boy library so fascinating, and I mean, this interestingly sort of extended into Donkey Kong Land as well, is that, it had a lot of, series that had appearances both on consoles and on Game Boy felt like they had this very, bizarro world quality to them on the Game Boy that I think... Yeah. Donkey Kong Land and Super Mario Land 2, despite being made by completely different teams, they both feel like Game Boy games to me in a way that's hard to quantify.
But, again, K. Rool was in Donkey Kong Land. They didn't replace him with Stinky the Space Ogre. I mean, so it's just one of these things where, this is a great philosophy to have, Mamie, if we're getting, 6 Mario games a year. But when we're getting 2 Donkey Kong games a decade, then all of a sudden the stakes are just absurdly high. You know, you're just hoping against hope that somebody like Dixie Kong will appear that decade.
Yeah.
And it becomes something of enormous strife. And so, anyway, I don't even know how we got on this tangent about characters. We're talking about the rumor. We're talking about Nintendo EPD. It was like Jungle Beat or something. Yeah, Jungle Beat. So they did this like their own takes on Donkey Kong Country elements, but out of respect, because Jungle Beat was such a different game than Donkey Kong Country, they felt it would be disrespectful. It would sully the likes of Candy Kong and Kato Ninetales to ensnare them. But you know, I respect that. I think they were wrong, but I'm not upset about it. You know, it's just Nintendo being Nintendo. What happened there, though, was that the most consistently selling Donkey Kong games of that entire Cold War were Rare's Donkey Kong Country remakes. And that really had this ripple effect from then on. While we at DK Vine were wringing our hands about, oh, Nintendo hates Donkey Kong, Miyamoto hates Donkey Kong Country, we're never going to see Diddy Kong again. Wah!
Donkey Kong isn't going to be in Brawl because they hate him. They hate him.
Yeah,
they want him to die.
That was a DK Vine forum talking point for a bit. Basically, what happened though was behind the scenes, Nintendo noticed that Donkey Kong Country still had legs, even though this was the whole era of like critical reevaluation, where like the generation of the aughts were tearing down the generation of the 90s, and they were like, Donkey Kong Country was overrated trash. The graphics, how do you describe it, Josh? Dithered plastic?
Yeah. Because like you look at it blown up on like God, it's even worse on like a modern TV, like the enormous HD screens we have now. This like Super Nintendo game running at 240p, and like you get razor sharp pixels on something like Super Mario World, and you know it's not exactly what it was meant to look like, but it still looks nice. Whereas like Donkey Kong Country, just like pre-rendered games in general were so tied to the format of composite video and CRT displays. Like I got a CRT a couple years ago, and like I almost always, when I play Donkey Kong Country games now, I play it on there because like it's just it brings back that level of realism and that level of atmosphere in a way that like playing it on an emulator just doesn't.
Oh yeah, I have a giant CRT TV here in the office. It's just like taking up a bunch of floor space, but I don't care. I don't care. I love it. Yeah, but I mean, you know, this whole critical reevaluation where Donkey Kong Country is trash and it was just kind of torn down. Really, a lot of it had to do with Nintendo fans being salty about Rare no longer being with them, and therefore trying to find fault in whatever the studio did. It's like, well, we're not even upset. Good riddance. And like, we never even liked Donkey Kong Country.
That's the thing. You know, you said earlier that a lot of Nintendo fandom, like, on the internet nowadays is sort of defined by the GameCube generation, and I think that's sort of always the case. And that, like, I look back on like sort of gaming zeitgeists over the decades that I've been on the internet, and it seems like the zeitgeist is always sort of determined by the people who are the loudest and who have like the most passion about these things, but also sometimes have the least perspective about them. And in the 2000s, you know, that was the 80s kids. That was the NES generation talking about how, oh, Donkey Kong Country is overrated. Rare was never that good. It was all style and no substance. Miyamoto was a god, and he had nothing to do with it.
You have this thing where like the previous generation and the up and coming generation kind of join forces against that middle generation and kind of disregard everything they grew up with. And then it just comes back around, because then the next decade, then everything that generation just had shit on comes back in vogue. I've talked about this phenomena a lot here on the Kongversation, but there's a reason that things like Banjo-Kazooie and Conker and yes, Donkey Kong, they all kind of came roaring back in the 2010s in some capacity of fandom.
I said this on Twitter a few weeks ago. I was like, in the 2000s, I was like, oh god, the internet won't shut up about the 80s. And then in the 2010s, I was like, hell yeah, man, the 90s were the best decade ever. We had everything. The 90s were great. And then now I'm like, the internet won't shut up about the 2000s.
Right. And it's fine. It's just the nature of the beast. But the thing is, like, once something comes back, it doesn't necessarily go away again unless the fandom becomes disinterested or you just let it wither and die. So I'm not going to let anything happen to my babies. I'm going to keep all this stuff relevant as much as is within my power. But yeah, Donkey Kong Country, the Game Boy Advance trilogy did a surprising amount of numbers for like lower fidelity remakes of games that weren't even really that old at that point. But this was how like a whole generation of people were introduced to the Donkey Kong Country games. We talked about Returns babies. There were GBA trilogy babies out the wazoo. You still see them on DK Vine and in our community. They're just like, yeah, my first Donkey Kong game was Donkey Kong Country 3 for the Game Boy Advance, right?
Yeah.
So
the music wasn't that bad, you guys. Come on.
So anyway, Nintendo took notice and they were like, well, this needs to be the direction of Donkey Kong. And Rare, of course, saw the sales that this was doing. I mean, this was kind of at a fraught period for Rare, too, having just been acquired by Microsoft and trying to find a niche on the Xbox that I would argue they didn't really hit until Sea of Thieves. And they were making bank on these Game Boy Advance games, though. And they wanted to do Donkey Kong Country 4 for the Nintendo DS. And Nintendo was like, well, actually, maybe we should do that ourselves so we can actually put it on the Wii because you can't make Wii games and we can. So thanks, but we got it from here, Rare. And that is kind of where the ball got rolling for Donkey Kong Country Returns. Michael Kelbau and the team at Retro took the reins, and I think it hit at the right time. Obviously, it hit the right time for DK Vine because we would not be here discussing this today if there was no Donkey Kong Country Returns striking when it did.
Oh yeah, man! In my memory, as soon as DKC Returns was announced, like I went to DK Vine, and I think I don't remember quite how long it took, but like the redesigned site was there.
That took about 2 months.
Yeah.
This was still when we were like soaked in neon and like we had the weird space aesthetic that didn't really fit Donkey Kong. But yeah, it was an exciting time. And then for the next half decade, Donkey Kong was at home with Retro Studios and Tropical Freeze. Like Tropical Freeze rectified a lot of the problems the older fans had with Returns. Even little things like the map screens not having the characters on them. They fixed that. They listened to the fans, and that was really cool and sobering. And they even used DK Vine's font at the time as the text font in the game. And I don't know how intentional that was, or that was just a happy coincidence, but it was noticed. And so Tropical Freeze, we still wanted Kremlings, we still wanted more animal buddies. Of course, we're always going to have complaints about something. Well, in my ideal game, we would have 20 animal buddies and 40 Kongs, and David Wise, Grant Kirkhope, Robin Beanland, Evelyn Fisher, and would all be doing the music, and Graham Norgate. Just get them all in there. Who cares? But it's not going to happen. I mean, Tropical Freeze. I could sit here and say, I don't really care for the Kongs being on the back of Donkey Kong all the time. I wish you could do this differently, but it's nitpicking.
No game can satisfy every type of fan, and it's going to satisfy everyone. But I think even if Returns and Tropical Freeze don't do it for you, and I totally understand why they might not for somebody. Like, you compare them to the DKC trilogy on Super Nintendo, and they are very different games. But even if they're not for you, I think anyone could look at them and see, this is a quality product. This is clear, like this is a good game. It's just not for me.
Yeah, and I think too that it's a point you hit in a fandom. And when you're a huge fan of something, you only have so long in that fandom as your fandom intensifies before you start getting critical.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say, like, you have this like honeymoon period where a game comes along and then its sequel comes along and you love the sequel even more. And eventually you hit the point where an entry defines the ideal for that series. And then once you hit that ideal, you can only go down from there, right? So Donkey Kong Country 2 is the ideal for me. And so from there, you have a series of diminishing returns, or why'd you do it that way? Or not how I would do it. That's not how it was in my head.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine it would go like this. And so on and so on. And you kind of have to divorce yourself from that because you're like, yeah, but guess what? I'm not creative director of this franchise, am I? I'm just a hardcore fan who's probably thought about this way too much and lived in this world in my head a little bit too often for comfort.
Sure, and equally, this is something that I think is sort of a big part of the reason that fandoms can turn so sour and turn so toxic, is that, like, it is not an invalid read of, for example, Donkey Kong Country Returns. It's not an invalid read to look at it and compare it to Donkey Kong Country 2 and say, okay, well, here's what it does differently. Here's what it does worse. Here's like it's not that that's invalid. It's that fans sometimes too often treat that sort of read like it's the only valid read. Like the only thing, like, because you're such a big fan of something and because you care about it so much, you get too in the habit of only comparing this thing you love to other versions of itself. And
yeah, exactly.
And when you do that, like, you're not really allowing these things to stand on their own merits. But boy, it takes a long time and a lot of perspective to really be able to see something you love that way.
Right. Yeah, it does. And, the thing is, I will always have Donkey Kong Country 2, right? That's not going anywhere. That's something that I can always revisit and go back to. So, I don't want just more Donkey Kong Country 2. I want new experiences. I want to be surprised. So even if I never hit the highs of that ideal again, I need to keep perspective and still enjoy what we've got and look and celebrate the positive aspects of that and shrug off the things that don't really work for me because, you know what? Maybe it'll hit with me harder next time. Granted, that's easier to do when you have multiple releases a decade and not two. So I totally get why people get frustrated, especially when, say, a beloved character like K. Rool doesn't surface for 10 years. Because it's like, hey, you know what? Life is finite, right? Yeah. We're only on this planet for maybe 100 years if we're lucky. And so if 1/10 of that time goes by without any of these elements I like, I start looking at my own mortality a little bit.
Jeez.
Yeah, you're running deep here. But so I get that anyway. So I don't know why I'm just relitigating the history here, other than to kind of set the place, set the mood for what we really need to discuss.
That's how this show goes, man. Like I look at a topic sometimes and I'm like, man, how are we gonna make that an entire podcast episode? And then it's like, we're going. The answer, same with my series, historical context.
Yeah, basically, yeah. An hour in, we eventually get to the point.
Yeah, exactly.
Tropical Freeze was critically and commercially underwhelming at the time. It was one of those things where, like Paul McCartney's Ram, and there's your Paul McCartney reference, take a drink, but Paul McCartney's Ram, his sophomore album following the Beatles' breakup, was reviled by critics in its day. And it wasn't until several years later that people went back to it and they said, hey, actually, this is a really good album. This is actually the world's like first indie album, in that it just reflects a simpler life and kind of eschewing the rock star glamour and just returning to nature and escaping it all. And I guess the audience of 1971 couldn't appreciate what it was saying, but now it was kind of like embraced by millennial Beatles nerds because it really spoke more to our values than the values of the boomer generation.
It's been
and I feel like
it's been vindicated by history, as TV Tropes puts it.
Yes, so Tropical Freeze is the Paul McCartney and Linda McCartney's Ram of the Donkey Kong series. And Jeff Onen is out there. He's nodding his head right now. He knows what I'm talking about.
Oh, this is going completely over my head, but I'm just nodding along.
That's fine. That's fine. A lot of the stuff you talk about with Sonic goes over my head, but I'm just like, I'm so nodding my head. I'm like, fascinating.
Ah, yes.
So yeah, Tropical Freeze eventually found an audience, even if that audience, was always going to be nerfed by the fact that it was a Wii U game. And it was also released too close, I feel like, to that Super Mario game that came out. Was it Super Mario 3D World? Or
yeah, so
it was one of them. One of them games.
It was 3D World. What happened was Tropical Freeze and 3D World were at one time both scheduled to come out holiday 2013, and then Tropical Freeze got delayed till February. And it's always kind of seemed like for that short of a delay, they were just sort of trying to get it out of the way of 3D World.
Yeah, I wonder if that was the case, but I feel like it just got it got kind of a death slot.
Yeah,
and hey, look, Nintendo EPD's games are always going to kind of be given priority in Nintendo, which is why this news, this rumor, this heavily sourced bit of info is good news, because it basically puts Donkey Kong up on this throne that he hasn't been sitting on in quite a long time. So anyway,
but also I do just want to say also, Tropical Freeze was a Wii U game. If it had come out in the holidays, how much difference would it really have made? With hindsight.
Sure. With hindsight. So anyway, following Tropical Freeze, Retro decided to take a break from Donkey Kong. They weren't going to go back to Metroid, unless they were dragged back to Metroid. They were going to develop their own game, their own IP. And this E3 2015, this is where we first basically made industry connections, DK Vine did, because we went out to E3 2015. It was our first E3 in person, and this is where it gets weird for us, because people who grew up reading DK Vine, who are now in the industry, find out we're there, they seek us out. And it kind of becomes, I gave the name Dave Throat to a source because it felt like Watergate, man, clandestine people meeting you in parking garages. And I'm also a 1970s political nerd. So, it is what it is. But this is where we found out that David Wise was composing the music for this new Retro game, and we didn't know what it was at the time. I didn't even know if it was related to Donkey Kong or not, but just David Wise would be continuing to work with Retro going forward, which is really exciting. Even if it wasn't Donkey Kong, that's still really awesome for David Wise.
I do remember this because I remember a lot of people just sort of taking it as given. Well, it's David Wise, it's got to be a new Donkey Kong, and I think that in the years after Tropical Freeze, maybe for about, I'd say as late as like the Switch release even, like we were still sort of taking it as given, like we were still talking about the DKC Returns trilogy. Like we were almost like the sort of cultural fandom osmosis had pretty much convinced itself, well, this is going to be a trilogy. Retro's going to do at least one more.
Right. Donkey Kong Country Baja Blast is the jokey fan title that DK Vine gave this phantom third game, either from Retro, or we even, considered the possibility that maybe like Monster Games, who handled the Donkey Kong Country Returns 3D port on the Nintendo 3DS, maybe they could just take it over. So it'd kind of be like how teams at Rare shifted and a new team handled Donkey Kong Country 3 after the Greg Mayles, Chris Sutherland team like moved on to what became Banjo-Kazooie. wasn't to be, but we didn't know that at the time. And so basically Retro was doing this project. They were going to show it off at E3 2015, actually. They even made this tweet, "Can you dig it?" And then they linked to E3. This was a couple days before E3 2015. And they were a no-show at E3 2015, and that's because Nintendo wasn't happy with the game and said, "We're not showing it."
And it is insane that something like that, something that significant, could like be called off at the last minute like that.
And it's not like Nintendo really had a lot to show off at this E3. They had Star Fox Zero and that weird like handheld Zelda game, and then that Metroid game that really upset people, like Federation whatever.
Force, yeah.
Yeah. See, I can't retain the names of these games if they're not DKU, but I mean, I remember distinctly, like, just the, like, it felt like just there was no enthusiasm for Nintendo there. And this was, of course, the Rare E3, where Rare had its big renaissance, the Rare-naissance. They had their Rare Replay, they revealed Sea of Thieves, they had the new logo, and like everybody from Rare was there. Even Greg Mayles and Robin Beanland were there. I mean, this was like a big E3 for everyone but Nintendo. And yeah, and then it was just we didn't hear anything about this Retro game, the Can You Dig It game. And I always think of Booker T.
Oh, yeah.
Professional wrestler Booker T. When I just imagine him reading this tweet because that was one of his catchphrases.
Maybe that's what happened. Maybe Booker T contacted Nintendo about litigation and was like, "Hey, you can't be doing this."
All right, yeah, and then he did the spinaroonie. He kicked them in the head and then did the spinaroonie and raised the roof and Booker T. Anyway, so Retro continued to toil with his game, and I'm not quite clear, exactly when the axe came down, but the axe came down eventually. And of course, we all know that they were eventually put on Metroid Prime 4 as basically like, look, Metroid Prime 4 also isn't working out. We basically just need to pool our resources here. Your game's not working out. This game's not working out. You're doing Metroid Prime 4 now. And guess what? You're back under the authority of Tanabe. Have fun. And I love Retro Studios. I really love what they did with the Donkey Kong Country Returns duology, as we now have to call it. But the fact of the matter is, had the series stayed with Retro, if the expectation was, well, Retro is going to have to do Donkey Kong when they do Donkey Kong, we might not have another Donkey Kong game for 5 to 10 years from now. I mean, like, it's like, I don't even know, like, what's happening with Metroid Prime 4, if we're going to get, tipped off about it at this coming E3 or what, but, Retro, it's taking them some time.
So
it really is.
I do want to say, like, the journalist in me has to ask, and feel free if you can't speak on this, then that's fine. You said earlier that like Retro didn't want to go back to Metroid unless they were forced to. You sort of I don't know if you worded it that way exactly. Like, was that the case? Was Retro like, we don't want to do Donkey Kong, we don't want to do Metroid, or were they just burnt out on that? Were they?
I don't know if it's like we never want to do Metroid again,
right?
Kind of like attitude. I think it was more like we've done 3 of these. Course. What more can we really say? And it was like, and now we've done 2 Donkey Kong games, and maybe we could do another one, but the reception to this last one wasn't. I think they were kind of maybe spooked off doing another Donkey Kong game, based on how like the furor the Tropical Freeze raised at the time. And I think it was like, let's do our own thing. Instead of just reinterpreting something that already exists, maybe let's do our own thing now. And I get a lot of like misinformation out there that this was going to be the Sheik game, right? Because there's all this like news that Retro was going to do a Sheik game. I don't think this was the Sheik. I think the Sheik game came before all of this, like the proposal to do a Sheik game. But this was going to be their own thing, their own IP for Nintendo. And it's like everybody like thinks of Retro as the new Rare under Nintendo, right? Like they even have an R name. This Western studio that like worked on Donkey Kong, reinvigorated Metroid, and then like maybe they're going to create a Banjo-Kazooie for Nintendo, like Rare did back in the day.
Listen, if we don't get a new Ken Griffey Jr. game soon, I'm considering leaving the fandom.
And I think just the realities of modern game development have kind of hit retro in the same way that it hit Rare in the aughts. Mm-hmm. It kind of like caught up with them a little bit, and just getting something new off the ground. Like what they lucked out when they hit upon the formula for Metroid Prime, because they were able to make 3 fairly lucrative games out of that, and then they were able to do Donkey Kong Country and reimagine that, and then I think just doing a new IP was just it was a tall order that for whatever reason, and we'll probably never have the full picture here, it just didn't work out.
Yeah, like you said,
Nintendo eventually
the realities of modern game development are very different, and I think people sometimes sort of underestimate how big of an effect that has, because I see people in the Donkey Kong fandom and in the Sonic fandoms and in lots of different fandoms sort of lament, like, look at all of these games we used to get like 20 years ago. Look at how frequently, and a lot of them were crap, but like we got so much more. Like, why don't they do that now? And it's because, game development has gotten so much more expensive. Like, development budgets have ballooned. Like, it's so much riskier now than it used to be to, like, take a risk on even, like, a second-tier property.
Yeah. Like, the closest equivalent we have to the gaming process of our youth, and I mean our youth, not like not a lot of the people listening to this who are younger than us, but I think that would be indie games. And even then, the process is wildly different and more prolonged, and it's not just we're churning out game after game after game. But yeah, I think you have to look to like lower budget titles to get that. But when even something like Donkey Kong has a lot more capital behind it than it had back in the day. So
yeah, like you look at any platformer series short of Mario, and I'm sure even then Mario's been affected to some degree by this, but like to a certain extent, those of us in the Sonic fandom and in the Donkey Kong fandom, we're very lucky that we're still like in the conversation, that we're still getting games at all, because you look at like Spyro the Dragon or Klonoa or a lot of those, like it's been decades since their last like brand new release.
Well, Spyro had the Skylanders franchise, technically.
Technically, yeah.
But Crash has just had this big resurgence, Crash Bandicoot, and now that might be out the window because Activision is pulling all resources into Call of Duty, as I already mentioned.
Yeah, man, like the whole time I was playing Crash 4, I was loving it, but there was this little voice in the back of my mind being like, man, I sure could go for like 2 or 3 dozen more games a lot like this per year, And then, of course, that news comes out, I was like, oh, well, I guess we'll get less then.
And as I mentioned on Twitter when the news broke about what Activision was pulling, it's like, just remember, Activision was in the running to buy Rare back in 2002. Thank Log for Ken Lobb and everyone at Microsoft who made the deal happen, because all things told, you can have whatever opinion you want of Rare under Microsoft, but we fared way better than we would had they remained with Activision. So as I made the joke that the water in the new Call of Duty would be excellent, though, the best you've ever seen.
Yeah, but no, absolutely. I don't think it's even a question, this hypothetical. Had Rare been bought by Microsoft or by Activision in 2002, then Rare would no longer exist as like a separate entity.
Speaking of Activision, so 2015 E3 also saw the announcement that Donkey Kong was joining the Skylanders franchise. And this was like when Reggie held up this damn Donkey Kong Skylander amiibo hybrid, turbocharged Donkey Kong. I'm looking at him right now because he's underneath my amiibo shelf. And I love this ridiculous Evel Knievel jumpsuit wearing Donkey Kong. I think it works somehow, but it was just like, what? What? Like, what is this? What is this? This is like Skylanders. So at the time, we learned that this was done because Donkey Kong had not had a new 3D game in quite a long time. And this was kind of done as, this would be a kind of a cool treat for Donkey Kong fans, right? To have Donkey Kong in this 3D game, even if it's Skylanders, which is, I think several rungs more juvenile than Donkey Kong games were ever presented. Donkey Kong always had this kind of sarcastic edge to it that Skylanders is a lot more earnest and Saturday morning cartoon. Like even the voice acting with like Patrick Warburton, I remember playing Superchargers and being like just kind of like hoping nobody could hear me playing this because I felt I felt like I was my adulthood was being stripped from me a little bit, I guess.
Yeah, but I can also see that being like a major like boon for it, and perhaps introducing Donkey Kong as this separate character from like the Mario Karts and the Mario parties.
He was also with Bowser, so he still kind of had that tether. Yeah. But I mean, it was still cool, and it led me down this dark path where I was trying to buy all the Skylanders because I'm a completionist in whatever I do, Josh. And I have a whole closet full of Skylanders now.
Hey, Crash Bandicoot was like also in that same Skylanders game, wasn't he?
He was in the next one. He was in Imaginators.
So Crash and Kong are not, in fact, strange bedfellows. It did not become real.
No, Donkey Kong can, in fact, be playable in the Nintendo version of Imaginators. So you can have Donkey Kong and Crash in the same game.
It all comes full circle, doesn't it?
Yeah, like everything we're talking about, it's amazing the same actors continually pop up. Like, oh, here's how Activision comes back into this. Here's Rare again. But anyway, so this was the first of what I'm going to call the stopgaps, because Nintendo was like, okay, this is going to be a stopgap for Donkey Kong while Retro is trying to get their house in order. We don't really like, they didn't want to be like, I don't think they really wanted to be like, yoink, we're taking Donkey Kong now. Like, because you're struggling with your project. And granted, this was only a year and some change after Tropical Freeze. So it's not like there was this super long development time, but Nintendo was already unhappy with this game. They pulled it from E3. I mean, damn, that's cold. But at a certain point, and I'm not quite sure on the time frame here, might have been 2016, sometime a little bit later, this outside studio took over, and they started work on the new Donkey Kong game. And again, I can't really talk a lot about this, but a lot of cool things from what I heard. A lot of things that I think mechanically would please a lot of people.
Interesting.
Basically, people are going to like parse my words and try. He says mechanically a lot. He's talking about a racing game. It's a new Diddy Kong. No. This was a mainline Donkey Kong adventure game. I'll say that much. Okay. But, as time went on, then Nintendo made the decision. I think Miyamoto had a factor in this, but it was also EPD devs who were big Donkey Kong fans. Like, we would love to work on Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong needs to come home. Donkey Kong needs to be developed at Nintendo. Donkey Kong needs to have stability. Donkey Kong has not had stability in what will be going on 20 years next year in our real time here. And so they made the call, and the project got canceled. I think it was kind of just like, all right, fine, mutual parting the ways here. But then Donkey Kong came back under EPD, and this is when the next batch of stopgaps happened. Tropical Freeze for the Switch was announced. This was actually done by Retro. Retro came back to Donkey Kong while they were kind of in this perpetual development hell limbo. And Retro, by the way, wanted K. Rool as a secret final boss of the Switch version. By this point, Sakurai and his team were, obviously putting K. Rool in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. And I think the hammer came down. It's like, no, like K. Rool's re-debuting in Smash Ultimate. We're not going to waste K. Rool on a port of a Wii U game. No, so Retro tried. Retro didn't know this, as far as I understand. Retro was like, yeah, let's give the fans really what they want. Let's bring back K. Rool. And Nintendo was like, actually, we're already doing that. Sorry. So they're like, new funky mode. Fine, whatever.
You know, like, as cool as that would have been, like, with the benefit of hindsight and knowing, like, how, like, what a big moment it was that K. Rool was in Smash. Like, you know, I think it all worked out for the best.
K. Rool being in Smash and coming back via Smash was a far bigger deal than K. Rool being a secret boss in a like port or remake of a pre-existing game. And I said once before, somewhere along the way, I think K. Rool needs to come back in a Donkey Kong game first. I was wrong.
Like,
Smash is the kingmaker. Smash has like the ultimate authority now, whether we like it or not. Whatever Smash says becomes the zeitgeist and takes on this air of permanence, right? Like, there's a reason Captain Falcon is the Falcon Punch guy from here on to eternity. Smash has deemed it so. K. Rool is now a big fucking deal, a major Nintendo character, because Smash has said it shall be so. It is done. And so had K. Rool come back in more like meager terms, it would have blunted his Smash appearance a little bit, because part of the reason that was such a big fucking deal was, oh my god, K. Rool is back. It wasn't just K. Rool's in Smash. K. Rool is fucking back. And, you know, I think it would have been a treat for pre-existing Donkey Kong fans. Smash made new K. Rool fans, and that, I think, is a bigger deal.
Yeah, like I think if it had happened in the original release of Tropical Freeze in 2014, which would have been, you know, before Smash 4 released even, like, and I remember at the time, you know, I think that, like, the silhouette of the final boss, people were like, oh, this must be K. Rool in disguise, and that would have been cool. But I do think that like putting K. Rool in the port of Tropical Freeze for the Switch, absolutely, I agree, would have just sort of blunted what was going to happen just a few months down the road.
That being said, props to Retro.
Yeah.
I mean, like, they had the best. I think Retro has always had the best interest of the fandom at heart, and they really tried to make things work for us with the restrictions placed on them, with Nintendo corporate politics placed on them. A lot has been made about Tanabe and kind of like his rigid influence. I think Tanabe helped make the games better in a lot of ways. I think he had some silly edicts along the way that I don't understand. I think it's kind of BS. And I think Tanabe represents an older generation at Nintendo that, you know, you can agree and disagree. There's a lot of merit behind those philosophies, and I think there's a lot of rigid thinking that maybe needs to be chipped away at a little bit with the new blood of Nintendo. By the way, Booker T, I think, was never part of the New Blood, but he fought the New Blood. Anyway.
He was actually going by G.I. Bro at that time.
Oh.
WCW 2000.
Let me just open up another cider here.
So what you're saying is Tanabe is sitting there going, you youngins don't understand that pre-rendered games need to be played on CRT televisions. Real music is meant to be listened to on a wax cylinder.
You know, but before I move on from discussing Tropical Freeze, I will say that you can tell with the Snowmads that they tried their hardest to recreate the magic of the Kremlings without actually bringing back the Kremlings. You look at the Snowmads and how they behave and the various characters that fill out their ranks, and you can just insert the Kremlings in your mind, and just like ploop ploop ploop, and it totally fits. Even Lord Frederick was basically K. Rool's greatest hits, and that's a detriment, I think, to Lord Frederick, because I think Lord Frederick needed to be his own thing, and instead, basically, the whole boss fight with Lord Frederick is, what if we just have everything K. Rool did in the 3 big boss fights in Donkey Kong Country, the original trilogy, and we just do them all here. I
don't know, man. Lord Frederick never talks about how he used his wife's pots and pans.
Lord Frederick never talks. He just laughs. And again, that's another Nintendo trope, though, is the silent characters who just like emote through expression. But the same day Tropical Freeze for the Switch was announced, we also got a second Donkey Kong announcement. This was a very odd start to this Kongversation season. It was the Donkey Kong Adventure DLC expansion to Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle by Ubisoft. And Grant Kirkhope, of course, did the music for the original, and so Grant Kirkhope did the music for the DLC. So it was Grant Kirkhope back on Donkey Kong for the first time since Donkey Kong 64. I guess it would have been decades at this point, close Almost. To 2 decades. Yeah, and so this was the second stopgap. It was like, while we get our ducks in a row, we're going to have these 2 Donkey Kong projects that will at least give Donkey Kong a cultural footprint on the Switch, while we at EPD get to work on actually making the next Donkey Kong game. So, I don't know if these, like, we might have always gotten Tropical Freeze for the Switch, right? Because it is a practice of just putting Wii U games on the Switch because the Wii U was a massive flop.
Yeah, like, at this point, I'm pretty sure almost every Wii U game that could realistically be on the Switch is.
But the timing of it, I think, it isn't coincidental. I'm led to believe it isn't coincidental. And that we had these 2 big Donkey Kong projects lined up while... I don't think development had started on the EPD game yet, but they were planning to do it once, I think, Odyssey was released. And... well, we'll get into Odyssey a little bit here, too. So... that's basically the rumor. That's basically what my sources have told me and what other people's sources are telling them. And, truthfully, Josh, I have not been updated on this game in over a year. All my information that I've given is basically over a year old at this point. So now I'm in the dark as much as anyone is. I guess I stands for a bit of more of the understanding of the history leading up to it. So I'll say this: everybody is expecting now this game to be announced at E3, and I don't want to be the buzzkill. I don't want to be the party fouler here, but I will say that there are a couple of things we have to keep in mind why it might not appear at E3, but why that's not necessarily a bad thing if it doesn't appear at E3. So we're gonna go down this list. I'm gonna bring down everybody's mood, and then we're gonna take some calls that kind of speculate what this game might be, and then we'll get into all of that. So, as I said, I haven't been updated on the development of this game in over a year, and of course, in that time, we've had a massive worldwide pandemic. So COVID has delayed everything. I mean, COVID really just stuck a wrench in the gears of the entertainment industry, let alone the video game industry. Everybody's been working from home. And while I think things are back on track now, I know in Japan, things are still spotty with the vaccine.
Yeah. I have a friend who lives in Japan, and yeah, he says as much.
We've both been fully vaccinated. A lot of our friends here in the States have been fully vaccinated, but it's still a struggle in other parts of the world. And so, I don't know, as I haven't been updated on it, I don't know how much COVID has really ground everything to a halt. And I say all this, I could get an update about it, in a day or two, even before this episode goes up. Who's to say? But as of our recording, I am in the dark. Also, Donkey Kong's actual 40th anniversary. Everybody's bringing up the 40th anniversary as if Nintendo's going to do something like the 35th anniversary of Super Mario Brothers. Donkey Kong's actual 40th anniversary isn't until July. So I could see a completely separate Nintendo Direct for Donkey Kong's 40th anniversary, where 1, they reveal the new game, and 2, they reveal the theme park expansion. The theme park expansion is another reason why I'm hedging my bets if it's actually going to be shown off at E3, because they might coincide it with when they're ready to reveal the Donkey Kong expansion at Super Nintendo World and Universal Studios parks. And we know this is coming. We know it's under construction right now. They purposely didn't talk about it at all when they did the big reveal of Super Nintendo World. They just showed off, the Mario area that's open now. So we know this is coming next. We just don't know when they're going to kind of pull the curtain off. We've all seen the diorama. We've all seen what they have planned, the minecart roller coaster. There's a lot of excitement about it, but
that's
brand
sort of the key
synchronicity.
That's sort of the key thing to me, like in like my experience in like you getting up and seeing this news broken and seeing everybody having discussion on it. It's like, how many years ago has it been since that diorama came out? Like, how long have we known about that?
It's been a year and a half or 2 years. Again, COVID slowed down everything.
That's the thing, though. Like, when I saw everybody talking about this, and, I guess I didn't immediately think about it in terms of, like, what you were talking about at the top of the episode, where you haven't, like, reported on it, you've just sort of alluded to it. But I saw people talking about this, and I'm like, yeah, like I feel like I've been aware of this for so long.
As is anyone who regularly listens to the Kongversation or follows DK Vine or Kremlin campaigners on social media, because they've also really been talking about it.
It sort of reminded me of the feeling I got like when Mario Kart 8 came out on the Switch, and everybody was like, "Oh, this great new Mario game." I'm like, "Nah, I've played this years ago. What are you talking about?"
It did honestly make me feel a little good in that initial reporting period on Wednesday when people were tagging DK Vine, and they're like, I actually heard about this first from DK Vine. Credit DK Vine. And I was like, oh, thanks, but it's not really necessary. I'm not after that clout here. I'm just I'm just making my silly little podcast over here. But the other thing I want everyone to keep in mind, too, is about E3 itself. I know E3 is this romanticized notion, and heavily romanticized by DK Vine, but let's all be honest. E3 isn't what it used to be. Especially this year, there's no in-person E3. Mm-hmm. And I know a lot of people consider E3 to solely be the reveals, right? That's E3. E3 is just this time. It's gaming media Christmas, or some other big gift-giving holiday where we get all of this news at a very specific time of the year. But E3 is a 3-day press event that the reveals are actually leading up to. And there are no games that are going to be demoed by the press in a convention hall this year. That's not happening. This is all done virtually. So, if Nintendo wants to wait to reveal the game for whatever reason, there's no pressure on them to have a big showing at E3 when they can instead use it to punch up a Nintendo Direct later in the summer or the fall or whenever they're ready to sync up some of these announcements. So, yes, we might see it at E3. I'm hopeful we'll see it at E3, but I really do hope everyone checks their expectations as much as you possibly can, because if it's not shown at E3, that just means it wasn't ready to be revealed. It doesn't mean it's not happening. It's not a can you dig it situation where Nintendo's like, oh, nope, canceled. Fuck Donkey Kong. Into the no-hopers bin it goes.
but also possibly, maybe it's not that it's not ready. Maybe Nintendo thinks it would be more strategically advantageous to reveal it at a different time.
Yeah. So, like, my biggest anxiety about all this breaking in a way that I hoped it wouldn't really break, and of course it was always going to break when bigger outlets got tipped off about this. I'm not, like, trying to hoard this info like I'm some greedy gorilla with bananas, but I do worry that now the expectations are through the roof, and now people are looking at me like, is it coming at E3? Are we going to see it at E3? And I'm just like, yo, I don't know. Like, everybody just sit down, chill, maybe take half a pill and calm down, because your guess is as good as mine at this point. I've shared everything I've been told. at this point.
I think sort of keeping those expectations in check is very important for two reasons. Number one being, I guess a Z-list internet celebrity working in games, like, I've had sources before, and I've had people like within the industry sort of let me in on some details before. But I feel like what happens with a lot of these these big prolific sort of leakers, a lot of what they do is kind of, how do I put this? It's kind of like you said, reading the tea leaves. Like, they don't always have like the exact details on what exactly this is going to be. So, but they have like an inkling of what it is. And so what they'll do is they'll take that and then they'll sort of extrapolate. Well, so it sounds to me like this, like it'll be this. So a lot of it ends up being this sort of educated guessing. Like, I know there's been a lot of consternation lately over this rumored DK game. Is it going to be 2D or 3D? And like, I don't really know if that information is out there in any significant degree. It might be, it might not be, but I think there's a lot of speculation, there's a lot of guessing, there's a lot of sort of hedging your bets. The other reason I think it's so...
Well, I was just going to say, I openly speculated, and I pointedly said, I do not know, in my article, where I said, because I have not been tipped off about whether this is 2D or 3D, maybe it could be some sort of weird hybrid or something that straddles the line between both. And that's why I haven't been tipped off. And that was just naked speculation that I openly said it. But I see people now taking that. Hyle from DK Vine says it could be. I'm like, I wasn't getting that from myself. I said I do not know, but people are already running with that. So
that's what it is. Like, having sources on this stuff, like you said, you said there is smoke to this. There is a fire behind this smoke. But most of the time, if you have a source, then what you really end up knowing is you're more aware of the fact that there is smoke and sort of a general idea of where it's coming from, and not necessarily what's caused the fire. If that metaphor makes sense.
I tell you, Josh, you either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become Kevin Callahan.
But
so anyway, I want people to enjoy E3 no matter what happens. And I've lived with my fair share of disappointments during E3s of the past. I think this E3 should be, E3 always has this festival environment, even when you're at home, and we're all going to be from home this year. But I think E3 has always just felt like gaming Christmas, as I said, right? And it's always just been this early kickoff to summer where everybody just kind of lives and breathes games for a week. And it's always been even in my childhood days when I would just read about E3 in magazines, Nintendo Power, there was always this magic to it. And we didn't have E3 at all last year. It's coming back in some form this year. And I think we should just enjoy that. And rest assured that even if we do not get the big news that we're hoping for, take solace in the fact that it is coming, right? We will get there eventually. And as much as we all want to kind of get past that initial hurdle, good times are right. We are not the F-Zero fandom, right? F-Zero We're not the Earthbound fandom. And I have to say, can I just say really quick before we take these calls that I have probably the largest respect for the Earthbound fandom out of any fandom out there, because they have taken the least amount of stuff and made the most out of it, right? There's only been 2 official Earthbound releases in the West, and one of those only came out a few years back. And that was just finally an English translation of the original Mother game.
Which itself had just been sitting on the shelf since 1991 anyway.
Yeah. So, it's just... But, they still go at it. I think the Earthbound fandom, and I'm sure there's toxic elements in that fandom as there is in any fandom, but by and large, that is, I think, the ideal, what a fandom should strive to be, that, you just take it as it comes to you, and you just kind of laugh and have a big smile, and you prop up all the silliness and celebrate it in your own way. And so Yeah, that's just my advice going into E3 this year is think of the Earthbound fandom and try to be like that.
That's really good advice.
Yeah,
and that's kind of exactly what I was going to with my second reason that expectations are going to like run the risk of being too high is because you're right. There was no E3 last year, and even beyond that, like. I like as somebody like this is my primary hobby. This is my this is one like gaming itself is one of the things that I am most passionate about in my life. And I know for me that at a time it was frustrating last year, not that I ever held it against anybody because of course I totally understood it, but it was frustrating to me personally like as a gamer like that the release schedule after like April or May just dried up so much. Like, especially because this was a time when, you know, like I really needed distractions, and it just seemed like no news was coming. And of course it wasn't. How could it? That's totally fine. But I think because we've all sort of collectively been through that, this E3 runs the risk of being like, this has to make up for 2 Christmases, so to speak.
I remember when like Nintendo had their first Direct, couple months back, and people were upset that the Donkey Kong, like people have been following this, were upset that the Donkey Kong game wasn't announced there, and I'm like, well, what were you expecting it to be announced there? Like, come on, like, but so I think a lot of my anxiety this week, my grocery store panic, if you want to call it that, has been that now I feel like I am responsible for the mental well-being of thousands of people out there.
I felt that. I have felt that. I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah. So, like, I feel like if this doesn't show at E3, then I have let down thousands of people. And I honestly, like, I didn't even want to get out of bed on Friday. I felt like an elephant was sitting on my chest, and not the Ellie animatronic that we've seen in diagrams and dioramas from the Donkey Kong section of Super Nintendo World, but just like a full-on like pachyderm, right? And I was just like, and eventually I shook it off, and I got a shower, and I went online, and I just doubled. I was like, okay, we're recording the conversation. This is when we're doing it. I got better. I got over it. So I'm living with it. I'm managing my stress. But I just don't want people to have a less than stellar E3 if this gets revealed a month later or 2 months later or 6 months later. I mean, who knows when it's going to be revealed. There's a lot of speculation that this could be Nintendo's big holiday game for the year. And it's true, we don't know what their big holiday game is going to be. But again, like, who even knows what anything is going to look like after COVID? And, you know,
but I do think that's sort of going in line with what we were talking about earlier with like time dilation. Like to you and I at this point, like 3 years isn't nothing, but you know, we can wait 3 years. It'll happen when it happens. That's fine. But like, you know, if you're like 17 years old, 3 years is an eternity.
Yeah.
And so being told that, okay, well, it's not happening this year, or you're not going to get this version of what you wanted in exactly this way this time, like, oh, now we're going to have to wait like all this time.
Yeah. In the meantime, you know, I do recommend playing Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze for the Switch. I recommend playing Donkey Kong Adventure. By the way, we will be doing a conversation about that finally. But it's there just there is a lot of good Donkey Kong out there, but I understand this is what everybody is looking to. This is what like the future of Donkey Kong will represent. So a lot's on the line, both for the fandom and just for like a general interest, like what's it going to look like. And that's where the calls come in, because there's a lot of questions that are being asked, lobbed our way about what this game could possibly look like. So why don't we take the calls, Josh? Why don't we get to it and add our expertise to the debate? But keep in mind that this will just be our expertise and not really coming from any of my sources. Please don't report this as fact. All right. Let's take the first call.
Hey guys, I was wondering, do you think David Wise will be back to do the score, or will it be Nintendo in-house studio? Thanks for all the good work.
Well, thank you for the call. No, I do not think David Wise will be back. Granted, like David Wise has been asked, I think, are you working on a new Donkey Kong game? And he's like, I don't know anything about it. No, I'm not working with anything with Nintendo right now. Grant Kirkhope said the same thing, basically, when he was busy doing the new music for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate with the Banjo-Kazooie update. But I don't think this is just David Wise is under an NDA and he can't say. I think it wouldn't make sense for Nintendo to bring in a freelance Western composer, even if it is David Wise. If they want to bring a level of stability to Donkey Kong, I feel like, one, it's just harder for them to work with Western composers. As Sakurai mentioned in the Banjo-Kazooie video he did, that it's just never done, right? Like, it's just not something they do. With Retro, it was different, of course, because Retro is, located in Texas, so it's much easier for them to get an Englishman with a saxophone to do the music for them. But
the one picture of David Wise.
Yeah, but it's just I don't think it's in the cards. Now, I think that as much as David Wise coming back was like the biggest deal about Tropical Freeze on the day it was announced, I think, we're just going to have to give the new team, the new composer, a shot, because I feel like Nintendo does understand how beloved the music of Donkey Kong Country is. I don't think this is just going to be the hop and bop Super Mario music because it's Nintendo EPD. It's not just going to be, wah, wah. It's going to have some new agey elements to it. It's going to have that like synth heavy 80s vibe to it. David Wise's music has multitudes, but it's mostly like music that's very it can be very earthy. It can be very of like a spa type environment, I guess. And it can
actually, Hyle, my sources have revealed to me that the entire soundtrack, Super Mario World, every song in there sort of follow that same leitmotif of da 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 da. In this game, exclusive reveal right here. Every song will be Jungle Hijinks.
Oh, okay.
But a different thematic remake of Jungle Hijinks.
You're thinking of Super Smash Brothers, actually.
Oh, that's right.
No, it's like I talked about earlier in the episode. I think we need to be open to new experiences. As much as definitely. I would love David Wise to just be chained to a pipe in a basement and just continually make Donkey Kong music until he turns to dust. We did
as much as you would like that.
We were fortunate enough to have new David Wise Donkey Kong music, way past the point we ever thought we were going to see it. Right? We were fortunate enough to have new Grant Kirkhope Donkey Kong music, past the point we ever thought we were going to see it. So I'm kind of good. I'm kind of good with hearing something new, and especially like I feel like this is Nintendo's shot to really have a defining voice for Donkey Kong, more so than Jungle Beat ever was. Because Jungle Beat, even at the time, it just kind of felt like a weird one-off, even if we were worried it wasn't going to be. I think something in the back of our head always told us, like, this isn't really like the direction of Donkey Kong. I think probably because we had 4 competing visions of Donkey Kong at the exact same time it came out. But I'm excited to see what Nintendo has cooked up. I mean, it could be way tonally wrong, and I will register my complaint. I won't let that ruin the whole game for me. But yeah,
but that's it. Sort of goes back to what we were saying earlier about you don't just have to compare this new entry in the series to earlier entries in the series. If the music is tonally wrong, then it's bad because it's bad. It's not bad because David Wise didn't compose it.
Right. Yeah. And like, David Wise isn't the only good Donkey Kong composer. I mean, Donkey Kong Country Returns wasn't composed by David Wise, and it had some, I think, excellent tracks in it.
I agree.
I think, you know, we romanticize certain figures in our community. I certainly do, and David Wise his music does deserve to be romanticized, because it is just objectively amazing works of art. Even if, you know, you do very much clearly hear the influence of, like, well, that was inspired by Vangelis, you know, that, and so on. But it's still, like, I think tonally it sets itself apart from other gaming music, especially in the genres that Donkey Kong occupies. So,
for sure.
But Nintendo is also, like, recognizes, like, I think, how much the soundtrack of Donkey Kong is beloved. Donkey Kong Country is beloved. So I think they're going to try to emulate that, and at least to the best of their ability, while also, you know, striking a new balance. So, you know, and maybe David Wise will be back. Maybe he's lying. Maybe, you know, they're like really, you know, maybe the experience with Grant Kirkhope and the Smash team really opened them up to working with Western composers. Who's to say? But my educated guess is no. But thank you for the call.
Thank you.
All right. Ready for call 2?
Let's do it.
Hi, Hyle. Hi, Josh. This is Thomas of the Kremlin Campaigners. Oh, my goodness. It feels like this week has just been a crazy whirlwind of everybody and their mothers in the mainstream really catching up with sort of the educated speculation that most of us in the DK bubble have been doing for at least the better part of a year now. It feels like we're really on the precipice of a new kind of chapter for the franchise on the whole, just with the prospect of a dedicated in-house Donkey Kong team. And kind of what I like about it is it takes the pressure off of any given release, because you know what? If you don't like the genre, whatever it turns out to be, if you wish one legacy character or another would appear in a game again, you know, you can just wait until the next release instead of, you know, having to undergo a 7+ year hiatus, which is something I did want to touch upon that I feel is a little bit of an underexplored aspect here and want to see your thoughts on. This idea that everything that came out between Tropical Freeze's release and now, from a Donkey Kong standpoint, was a purposeful sign to keep the brand relevant and in the public spotlight. I don't know what I think about that. I mean, whether like Tropical Freeze Switch, for example, would have come out if there had not been this 7-year hiatus, or you know, if Donkey Kong would or would not have appeared in Rabbids DLC if we didn't have to wait this long. I'm curious as to where you fall in between, whether these were intentional breadcrumbs on the path between then and now, or if this was kind of just isolated indicators of Nintendo's continuing investment in the brand. In any case, looking forward to getting your thoughts, and can't wait to see what next month and beyond has in store. Take care. Bye.
Thank you, Thomas of the Kremlin Campaigners. Check them out. K-Rool Country on Twitter. They were instrumental in bringing K-Rool back, and they're one of the loudest voices in the Donkey Kong fandom today. This is something we were actually talking about earlier. And like we said, I think Tropical Freeze for the Switch would have happened at some point. It makes sense. But I think that the way they timed it definitely was designed to kind of serve as a stopgap while they were changing gears behind the scenes, getting away from that outside developed Donkey Kong game and making a new internally developed Donkey Kong game. So I think, you know, had we not seen that, we might have still seen Tropical Freeze for the Switch that year. Donkey Kong Adventure, I'm not sure about, but I think that Nintendo does things deliberately, and I don't think they do things just ad hoc, like, oh, let's just do that, fine, whatever. I mean, maybe that's sometimes the case, but you can tell when they have an investment in an IP and a selection of characters, and you can tell when they have no interest in it. F-Zero, again. Hate to bring up F-Zero because it feels like I'm picking on F-Zero. I'm not. I feel bad for the F-Zero fandom right now because it just feels like F-Zero is just this abandoned franchise.
Yeah, it's not that you're picking on them. It's that they are the sort of the apex example of this sort of thing happening.
Yeah.
Where their last game was like 18 years ago at this point, and it was fantastic. It was a wonderful, wonderful game, and it's just been radio silence ever since.
Yeah. Aside from Captain Falcon appearing in the Smash series, and Earthbound is kind of in the same boat as far as like, oh well, you can at least expect a little bit of fan service in Smash Brothers, but that's essentially where those series have gone to die or retire. It's like the villages in Florida, right? We're just gonna go there to wither into a husk. But apologies to any of our listeners in the villages in Florida. But I think that Donkey Kong, you can clearly see intent behind all of their decision making, including there's another aspect that I have not mentioned on this podcast that happened exactly the same time that these two did. Donkey Kong was split off from Super Mario's merchandising wing. So whenever merchandisers license properties, right, they license the franchise. And so it used to be you license Super Mario, that would give you access to the whole range, the whole palette of Donkey Kong characters. Around this time, they made Donkey Kong its own merchandising brand. So now, Donkey Kong is its own it's basically its own merchandising IP. And so this doesn't apply to deals inked before they split it off. So there are a few things that were grandfathered in that, even though they just licensed Super Mario, they still have access to some Donkey Kong properties. But by and large, now things carry the Donkey Kong branding if they're Donkey Kong merchandise. This has been a very noticeable shift in the last couple of years, and it's been intentional. And we saw a glut of weird new Donkey Kong merchandise since 2018, including Donkey Kong shot glasses, Donkey Kong underwear. Really, they're just catering, I think, to the Rare fandom. Oh, you like underwear? You like to drink? Here you go. You're all a bunch of alcoholics who have an exhibitionist fetish. There you go.
There you go. You're set.
We haven't gotten like any action figures, any things that I would actually have much interest in, but we have gotten shot glasses, underwear, and calendars.
But like, that is a really important point to bring up. And I talked earlier about whenever we found out that Donkey Kong was going to have his own dedicated section at this Nintendo theme park. That, combined with Donkey Kong being split off into his own merchandising brand, like, ever since then, I've been pretty zen about all this. Because it's just been like, clearly something's coming. Like, even had it not been for you, sort of dropping hints here and there and dropping reassurances, I think you could just look at like we said earlier, read the tea leaves. Like, clearly they're positioning Donkey Kong as, as a big deal within Nintendo. And I think our caller brought up something really interesting, and this may be getting way too far ahead of ourselves here. But if you look at sort of the track record of successful, internally developed Nintendo games, I feel like they're like the Kirby series or like Splatoon. I feel like they are way more likely to get consistent sequels and get consistent iterations within their series than something like F-Zero, where the last F-Zero game was made via a collaboration with Sega.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely, like, as much as I think we at a certain point in our fandom and DK Vine's lifespan would have railed against Donkey Kong being internally developed at then Nintendo EAD, now EPD, I think we all have come to the realization that this is the best possible outcome, short of Rare or like Playtonic partnering with Nintendo and saying like, we'll make your Donkey Kong games for you. Because let's be honest, if Playtonic got like a boost of funds from Nintendo to make Donkey Kong games, I don't think any of us would be complaining about that, especially after Impossible Lair showed that, boy, they've still got it with 2D platforming. Holy shit. Again, if you're waiting for the new Donkey Kong game, Yooka-Laylee and Impossible Lair, if you have not played that, then you have no excuse. No excuse for saying, I want a new Donkey Kong game now, but I haven't played Impossible Lair. Impossible Lair is Rare's Donkey Kong Country 4. Remember that Rare version of Donkey Kong Country 4 that I talked about earlier? Impossible Lair is it. Like, it doesn't have Donkey Kong in it. It mentions Donkey Kong. It mentions fucking Enguarde. It mentions Zinger.
It mentions you, for that matter.
I'm a character in the game. Why aren't you playing it?
And I don't mean DKU, I mean Hyle Russell you.
Yeah, I mean Hive Russell is Hive Russell. No, Russell is what they put on my Emmy. So anyway, I think that outside of like Rare or Playtonic is working on Donkey Kong again, this is the absolute best outcome for us, and we all realize that now because it's consistent. It basically demands that Nintendo is going to invest in the property and give it this clout and shine that they only reserve for the tippy-toppy franchises. And it's not really up to the whims of this outside studio is kind of interested in this, and maybe we'll work with them, and then we'll get one game, and then probably nothing after that. Like, again, I mentioned the analogy of Donkey Kong couch surfing. Well, that's done. He's got a nice studio apartment now, and maybe Nintendo EPD will let him move into bigger furnishings over time. And this is exciting for those of us who are like, I'm so worried if Dixie Kong is going to be in this game, or I hope Enguarde is back, or oh God, if Baffle Bear isn't in this game, I'm going to throw myself down a flight of stairs.
If Kiddy Kong is in this game, I'll throw myself down a flight of stairs.
But I think all that pressure is removed if we know, well, if they're not in this game, there's always the next game. The next game will be right around the corner in a relative span of time versus, this is what we're going to get this decade. I think
and I think it's also important, it's perfectly okay to want those things. It's perfectly okay to criticize the game if it's not what you want. Of course it is. But I think on some level, like, having a Donkey Kong game, it's the same thing we were talking about earlier with Returns and Tropical Freeze. Maybe it's not for everybody. Maybe it's not perfectly recapturing the magic of what you want Donkey Kong to be, but we'd still rather have Donkey Kong games than not have them.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's why, I don't know. I fit this weird zen point in being a geek, right? Where, If I don't have an interest in something, I just won't watch it or I just won't consume it. But something like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where I have become a fan of it, right? I made the James Gunn analogy earlier, but I loved WandaVision, right? And Falcon and Winter Soldier, I loved about half of it. But I'm not going to love the half. I'm not going to take the half of it I didn't really like and let it just ruin. This was just the worst thing. I was like, I really enjoyed that bit of it, and I'm gonna take that from the experience rather than dwell on that weird third episode where it was directed by the John Wick dude, and it just felt tonally off. It's just like. And then even you can take the stuff you don't like and eventually celebrate it as just this weird calling card in your fandom. And I wish more fans could do this. I mean, I think we do it at DK Vine now, where even Donkey Konga, we have in-jokes about it, and it's just kind of we're allowed to make fun of it, but don't you dare make fun of it because you're outside of the fandom,
Yeah, but it is. I do totally understand. It's more difficult to see it that way, both when you have a little less perspective on things and when you're worried that this vision of something that Donkey Konga, it's been you hear, oh God, it's been successful in Japan. They're just going to keep making these. What if this is all Donkey Kong is from now on?
Right. Exactly. But also, if Donkey Konga were coming out today, I think I would have a much more positive attitude about it than I did then. But maybe I had to live through the pain of something like Donkey Konga in my early 20s. It's hard to say how perspective develops over time. I do think, you need to have some of that experience in your life, and then maybe help lead other people through their own I wish there was an older, wiser Hyle to guide that Hyle back then. I know you said maybe I would have dismissed him, but I think like if there was a more prominent voice in the fandom other than me and Chad and everyone at DK Vine at the time, then maybe it wouldn't. Like I feel like I was the Pied Piper, kind of leading everyone to ruin. And just being foul and nasty and just mean-spirited towards everything that wasn't exactly what we wanted. And my experience now running DK Vine is trying to atone for that and being a better steward of the fandom and helping others like derive joy from it rather than being just this unpleasant experience in their lives. Because who needs that? Definitely not us, and definitely not the people developing the games.
Yeah, and like that's one of the great things about fandom is because like even if so and so game might not resonate with me and it might not like okay, I don't really see the merit in this. It's all like you can always find another fan who loves it and who thinks that this is wonderful, and you can like I love watching videos of where people are talking positively about games that I don't like because at their best, I can relate to them. I can be like, it's still not for me, but I understand why you feel that way about it. And I see the merit in it now.
One of the most awkward moments probably on the Kongversation was when we had studio head of Rare, Craig Duncan, on the podcast, and he said his favorite Donkey Kong game was Donkey Konga. And then we had to react to that, but I just remember it was like, all right, respect. Like, the head of Rare, his favorite Donkey Kong game is Donkey Konga. How do I process that information? And I just like was internally laughing. I was like, all right, this is probably the funniest comment you could have made, and I'm going to. It's like meme culture. I'm going to celebrate this and eventually grow to love it. So, it's just, yeah. But I think, all that said, like all the possible strife that could result, I think we, like most of the fandom is looking forward to seeing what EPD develops. And I just want to say, like, everybody should check their expectations, because I can guarantee you, like, I see a lot of like giddy excitement on the DK Vine forum right now, where people are like, oh, I bet we're going to see this and this and this and this. And surely it's just going to be like fan service heavy because this younger EPD generation really loves Donkey Kong. And I'm like, okay, it's not going to be Jungle Beat where it's just going to be Donkey Kong, right?
Sure.
But it's not going to be Peon's games where you're going to have Flip Flap the Bats from Donkey Kong 64 and all of this like ultra obscure fan service. I think there's a middle ground to be had there where you have enthusiasm for Donkey Kong and the total history of Donkey Kong with the Nintendo corporate culture.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's not going to be this like I don't think that, at least for the majority of its runtime, who knows about, we have no idea what this game is going to entail. I think we just it'll probably be a platformer, and that's about all we've got. But like, I don't think it's going to be the extreme challenge gauntlet compared to most other games on the market nowadays that Returns and Tropical Freeze were. Like, while I agree that like Nintendo's not going to just make it Donkey Kong, it's not going to be Jungle Beat like you said, I do think it's probably going to be geared more toward reaching as mainstream of an audience as possible, without alienating the existing fandom.
And I think the important thing is they know there is an existing fandom now. That is like that is a difference, especially post Smash Ballot. And so I don't think you need to be worried about Diddy. The rumors mention Cranky. Nothing about Cranky has been mentioned to me, but Cranky, I think, is Miyamoto's favorite character, or one of his favorite characters. Miyamoto specifically said to Retro, you should bring back Cranky. So I have a feeling Cranky is safe, or at least it is probably a good bet if you in the betting markets want to put some money up for this. And K. Rool post Smash Ballot, come on. The Kingmaker has decreed K. Rool is Nintendo royalty now, not just Kremlin royalty. So
Just given Nintendo's pedigree, I think they'll gear it in a way that it will exist or it will satisfy most existing fans, but I think it's also going to be much more geared toward creating new fans. They sort of try to position most of their games in that sort of realm of accessibility.
Yeah.
And I base that on Kirby, I base that on Mario Odyssey, I base that even on Breath of the Wild.
Yeah. If the Kremlings are back as antagonists, because I could even see a situation where K. Rool is back, but the Kremlings, like the rank and file Kremlings, aren't. Even in my head, I've always like had this like idea where like K. Rool would be more of a anti-hero from this point forward, because his popularity is too wide. Like, why would we just sideline K. Rool at the end of the game? Let's have K. Rool as one of the main protagonists of the game. But that's just speculation. I'm not even going off anything there. But I could see, like, if the Kremlings are back, we would have. I see in the live stream chat now, Kremlin enthusiast Gothic Teddy Bear, also a prolific Donkey Kong fan on Twitter, and somebody who's been tweeting quite a bit about these rumors from way before the major news sites were reporting. Gothic Teddy Bear says, I think we will get all new Kremlins, which is very exciting, but Critter and Claptrap could come back. And again, Smash is the kingmaker, and you look at like Claptraps. I think Claptraps are some of the most well-known Donkey Kong enemies because of their frequent appearances in Smash Brothers. So I think like that, and that's the thing people don't remember about the Kremlin crew, not just the Kremlins, but like all the weird animals that associate with the Kremlins and their military ranks, is they changed them with every game. It wasn't often that the same ones came back. Zingers came back, and then Donkey Kong 64 brought back a couple classic ones, but like from game to game, they would change out the ranks, or they would have massive reinventions to the ones that were already around. So Kremlins and the Kremlin crew can be anything. You just have to have some base crocodilian humanoid enemies, and then have whatever you want. So it's not even like you need to just like, oh, well, we have to have Naughty, and we have to have Army and Slippas, and you gotta have I don't know. Mini Neckies, yeah. You don't. Rare never really held true to any of that. They did whatever worked best for the game, and certain ones became more iconic than others. I think that gives Nintendo a great deal of freedom should the Kremlins come back. But anyway, we're probably spinning our wheels too much with this call. We should probably move on
I think we've deviated 2 or 3 times away from the original question.
Sure, we still have,
as we are wont to do.
We still have a few more calls to take, and we could have already covered ground that these calls bring up. So let's take the next call.
Sure.
Hi, this is Traveler of the Stars. Decent long-time listener, first-time caller. I was introduced to the series in my childhood through Donkey Kong Country Returns, and I think I was introduced to the conversation through your guys' discussion on King K. Rool coming to Smash, so I guess it's apropos that the Geek Critique is here. Hi, Geek Critique. My question, I guess, for you guys is, I don't want to cover ground if you guys have already, covered it, but obviously through your discussions over the years, I've heard, Returns was, you guys really liked Returns, but it was a bit different from, say, the Rare trilogy. Not as far removed as Jungle Beat, but still, more removed. And then Tropical Freeze is more closer to the Rare trilogy, but, it was just like Animal Buddies and, some other stuff that really made the Rare game stand out to you. And I know you guys don't just, the Rare trilogy is objectively better than the retro duology. Because, you guys put Tropical Freeze on par with Country 2, or at least close to that. So I know you guys just aren't just blindly biased towards your childhood. But I guess my question is, say there's a monkey's paw, right? You guys want Donkey Kong games back, right? I think you've compared it to Kirby before, right? You want some consistent games like Kirby, right? But let's say, because if it's internally at Nintendo, it'll probably, stay that way, right? Donkey Kong Country has never been internally developed at Nintendo. Obviously, there's Rare, then Payon, and blah, 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 blah. You guys already all know that. I guess my question is, what if, say, it is not as far removed as Jungle Beat, but it's close to that, right? But there are, like, the Kremlins, right, that are rumored. They're back, right? And, Dixie and Diddy and Frankie, I don't know, it's, Unguard, it's bringing back, and then obviously Randy will probably be back. I don't know which one to bring back. Maybe like Bluster Kong or something, I don't know. Just kidding. But, yeah, so I guess my question is, what if, they start churning them out like Kirby games, right? You get, like, a decent number of Donkey Kong games, like, every couple of years, right? But they're more far removed, like, than even Returns was, right? Maybe a bit goofier in tone. And then a second question is, what if it's like Mario, like back in the day, and it goes 3D for a couple of years, right? So we don't get the typical side-scrolling thing you guys are used to. What would you guys think about that? Personally, I want you guys to be really happy, because I know you guys have been waiting for this game for a while, but I know you guys will, new Donkey Kong game, you guys are going to be excited. And I'm going to be excited too. So, I just realized maybe I stepped over the tone, or did then. I don't know. Anyway, thanks for listening to me ramble, and hope you guys have a great day.
Well, thanks for the call, Traveler of the Stars.
I hope Wesley Crusher is doing well.
I think that, this also speaks to a lot of what we've already discussed. I'll say this about worries about maybe the tone or how the game is presented. I think we don't need to worry so much. I see a lot of people thinking it's just going to be like new Super Mario Brothers, but like with Donkey Kong, right? I think Nintendo isn't just going to make a Mario game and insert Donkey Kong into it. I don't think that's ever needs to be a concern. And I know this isn't really what Traveler Stars brought up, but like, I feel like they know Donkey Kong needs to set itself apart from Mario, and Donkey Kong has its own niche. Mario is Mario is platforming 101. It's basic. And the 3D games are a little bit more involved and evolved and kind of, go a little bit deeper. But the new Super Mario Brothers games aren't innovative in the slightest. So I think Donkey Kong will find its niche, and I think it will be rooted in what's come before. And I think as far as like tone goes, if you just look at those, the series of Smash reveals, the Rivals trailer with K. Rool and the Best Friends trailer with Banjo-Kazooie, I think Nintendo gets the tone of Donkey Kong. At least they do now. I think the humor, I think the way the characters engage, I think it's spot on in those trailers. And I think if those trailers are indicative of what this new game is going to look like and feel like, then I think we have nothing to worry about, right? So, I feel like they know that Donkey Kong, it has a more comedic bent to it, but it's a different style of comedy than Mario going, oh, pasta, lasagna, oh, I eat it all. I don't fucking know. Like, so whatever passes for humor.
Is Donkey Kong going to be made Italian?
I don't think we need to worry about
Charles
that. No,
Martinet voicing Donkey Kong.
No, I think Donkey Kong is going to remain weird, like neutral as far as any ethnic stereotypes go.
So what it sounds to me like he was asking like sort of this monkey's paw scenario, right? Where
we call them prosthetic golfing fingers here, but yes.
Yes. Where like we get it sounds like what he's asking is like we get Enguard, we get Winky, we get Animal Buddies, we get all the surface level elements of what we want. We get the character appearances, we get the Kremlings back, but the tone, like Nintendo completely misses the tone. Like it's all surface level.
Yeah.
So I guess the hypothetical is like, how would we feel if, for example, because we know this did very well in Japan. How would we feel if, like, the new Donkey Kong came out and it was based mostly, or in a large part, on almost like this revival or reimagining of the 90s CGI Donkey Kong Country cartoon?
Would they break out in song every 10 minutes?
God, I hope so.
No, I don't think we need to worry. Like what I was trying to say is I don't think we need to worry about that. I think Nintendo, especially, I don't want to hang too much on this, but all of this info that I'm getting and other people are getting about this being a project driven by a lot of the younger EPD devs that are enthusiastic about Donkey Kong, I think we don't. I think the reasons they're fans are probably similar to the reasons we're fans. And there's been this misconception that there's not really a huge Donkey Kong fandom in Japan. You know, it might be smaller than other franchises, but it's smaller here too. I think, like, since I took over the DK Vine Twitter account, one of the great joys is seeing the Donkey Kong and Rare fandom in Japan. And how similar it is to our own, here in the West. People are people. We have cultural differences that I find that I think we should celebrate and cherish, but we're also more similar than we give ourselves credit for. And I think that, there will be aspects of this game that will be like, well, not how I would have done it. That wasn't how it was in my mind. Oh, I'm going to have to fan wank that away. But you know what? That's just the nature of a long-running franchise.
Absolutely.
I just want Donkey Kong back. I mean, God, I don't want to sound too thirsty here, but if this just was Jungle Beat 2, minus the bongo controls, I would be like, fine. Like, just give me stability. Give me room to grow. I just don't want to be in the wilderness anymore.
And I think that's where I am too. I mean, frankly, Returns and Tropical Freeze were themselves and Jungle Beat for that matter, were already such a tonal shift from the original DKC trilogy on the Super Nintendo. But I never felt like I held that against them. I never was like, maybe I would have preferred it to be a little different sometimes, but I'll tell you what, one good example of this, I still get comments on this. For whatever reason, maybe I just had a little less perspective, but I went in so hard on DKC Returns ending when I made a video about it a few years ago. Uh-huh. And I look back on it now and I'm like, what was I so upset about? Why did I portray it that way? I'm fine. I think it's at this point, I think it's fun that DK punches the moon.
I still hate that, by the way. I still haven't gotten over that. And that is the moon punch. Again, that's one of those things where the fandom can't really agree on that. And a lot of us hate it, but we know how to make light of it. It's not really this thing. It's not like I'm waking up in a cold sweat at 2:30 a.m. and I just scream moon punch.
Yeah, I guess that's the thing. It's not necessarily, it's not what I would have done, but I don't know. I think I came across like I was offended by it, and I definitely do not feel offended by it.
But that's, again, you're a different person than you were 7 years ago or whatever. We grow and we evolve. Exactly. And the bad thing about having any online output is that then people can go back and hold up that view you had before you evolved and say, this is what you think. And it's like, well, not anymore. And it's like the criticisms politicians have for flip-flopping. Do you remember that flip-flopping?
Oh, yeah.
You're a flip-flopper because you said this one thing and now you say this one thing. And how can I trust you if you haven't held true to your views rigidly unmoving? And it's just people we need to allow each other room to grow and evolve. Or else we are doomed as a species. We are doomed as a civilization. We've got to allow people who are at least trying to behave in good faith room to grow. If I wasn't afforded that room to grow, oh God, I would just remain a miserable person. So I don't know. That's just a long way of saying, whatever the game is going to be, I am going to try to see the best in it. And I'm sure it won't be 100% what I want. I'm sure it won't be 70% of what I want. Maybe it will be. Maybe I'm being, too cautiously optimistic here. But I think that I'm not going to be uncritical. I'm not going to just be a blind. Yeah. I'm not going to be a blind zealot when it comes to it and be like, we must agree with everything 100% or you're a bad fan. But I'm not going to be looking to tear it apart. I'm going to just, take the things I don't like at face value, laugh it off, find ways to work around it in my headcanon, and move on. I mean, that's just the nature of being a fan.
And then the other question he asked about was like, okay, for us, what if they do a series of 3D games for a couple of years and we don't?
Great.
And they don't. Yeah, I mean,
great.
Man, I made the mistake of like wading into some of the Twitter discourse around this a few days ago, like when this rumor was first coming out.
Yeah,
like two of my favorite genres are 2D platformers and 3D platformers, and if pressed, I would probably say I generally like 2D platformers a little more. But maybe it's the fact that I love both of them so much that I just get this weariness from the whole discourse around discussions like this, both in this fandom and, it's really bad in the Sonic fandom. So...
Oh, yeah.
So, like... I guess my thoughts on that are, if it's 2D, great. If it's 3D... Actually, I'm probably a little more intrigued that way because, like, DK64 was like the one time this has been attempted, and it was over 20 years ago, and I don't think, like, I can't imagine at this point that a new 3D Donkey Kong game would be in any way beholden to anything that DK64 did or didn't do. So
you're absolutely right. It wouldn't be. It would chart its own territory. And I think that, look, the next episode of the Kongversation I have planned, assuming no more like big news about this drops in the interim, is a retrospective on E3 2001. E3 2001 is what I hold up as the ideal for E3, because that is the E3 we had Donkey Kong Racing announced, we had Diddy Kong Pilot announced, we had Donkey Kong Coconut Crackers announced, we had Banjo-Kazooie Granny's Revenge, and then I think that was where we learned that Star Fox Adventures was what Dinosaur Planet became, but Tricky was still in it, and all this good stuff. But that, like, I think Donkey Kong can be anything. It can be any genre. It can be 2D platformer, 3D platformer, racing game, puzzle game. Give me Donkey Kong in any capacity. Just give me stability. Give me constant releases. Don't let up. Give yourself room to grow and evolve, and I will be happy. And Tanabe spoke of this in 2014 when they did the interview circuit for Tropical Freeze. They're like, maybe Donkey Kong's next game could be 3D. Maybe it could be like Mario where he has alternating releases. I agree. I don't see any so long as Donkey Kong carves out a niche that sets itself apart from Mario, there's no reason Donkey Kong couldn't be anything. And I feel like the series has so much untapped potential, especially because it's been homeless for 20 years.
And I guess this whole 2D versus 3D debate is yet again, this is sort of becoming the theme of like holding a game up to your expectations of what you wanted it to be.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, wading into the discourse, you do see a lot of people who are sort of approaching this like, well, if this isn't what I want, if this isn't 3D, if this isn't 2D, then immediately, like I'm just going to dismiss it because, we have enough of this thing.
I just want a new Donkey Kong game.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
And easy for me to say loving 2D and 3D platformers as much as I do, but I get it if you only really enjoy one or the other, but
After we're done with the calls, assuming any of the calls don't already touch upon this, I will weigh in on the 2D and 3D debate, 2D or 3D debate.
Stay tuned.
I will give, yeah. Don't tune out now. You want to hear what this jackass has to say? Stay tuned. But yeah, I just want there to be stability for Donkey Kong. Because honestly, like, I have enough itches scratched in the fandom right now. Like, I'm a big Sea of Thieves fan, so my Rare fandom is being scratched. Playtonic just blew me away with Impossible Lair, so I'm just waiting with bated breath, what they do next. And even Mario Kart Tour, Josh, I've found the joy in Mario Kart Tour. I am too positive at the moment. My cynicism has been obliterated, Josh. I need to find something to complain about, or nobody will take me seriously online.
And that's the thing. That's gaming fandom in general. Like, if one series or one part of a series or one aspect of a series or even just one game is getting you down and it's not really your cup of tea and the fandom's bumming you out, like, the industry is huge. Yeah. And if modern games are getting to you, the retro community is huge. Like, you can always find something else to play and something else to focus on.
Right. Yeah. And then I'll just write biographies about It's Mr. Pants characters in the interim, like they get 2 likes on Facebook because nobody knows who Toby Pie is, despite my years of talking about him. All right. Let's take the next call.
Hello, Hyle. Hello, Josh. It's Eric here. Hyle, you know me on Twitter. I always talk to you about Superman. I'm not really on the forums that much these days, but I am on there as last Kremling of Krypton. I don't call in a lot. Last time I called in was for E3 2019, and look at us again. We're talking about the EPD Tokyo team doing a DK game. Also want to shout out Zippo. He's a good friend of mine. I'm happy he was able to get that scoop out there because, we've been talking about it for a while and everything. So one of the troubling things I'm realizing is I'm seeing a lot of people thinking it's a 3D game by virtue of the fact because all the headlines are saying, oh, Super Mario Odyssey team working on DK. So now they think everything that team does is like 3D or whatever. Hopefully that gets ironed. People's expectations aren't out of whack and everything. But I just wanted to lay down a prediction or two because it's being done in Japan. I wouldn't be surprised if they go with just the Super Donkey Kong name for all regions, because I don't think they used that over there in a while. I remember they just called it like DK Returns, DK Tropical Freeze, no Super, no Country. So I think it would be kind of charming if they did that for like a worldwide sort of thing. It'd fit, and that would help label it as like the Japanese stamp on it. And since it's done by like that team, I wouldn't be surprised if power-ups become more of a point that, I don't think it's going to be like riddled like Mario games, but I wouldn't be surprised if they maybe bring back like the Invincibility Barrel from 2 or Strong Kong from 64, stuff like that. I wouldn't be surprised. I just don't think it's going to be anything crazy or like transformations where he gets like bigger or whatever. And I wouldn't be surprised too if, since it's like the anniversary and everything, they try to do more stuff with arcade roots. The classic games or anything, maybe like a girder world, or I think this is probably a long shot, but maybe bring back Junior or something like that. I could maybe see it happening since this is, more of the Tokyo team. Sometimes they want to play more with like the classic stuff than like the rare era stuff. But it's really exciting that, we get a bunch of new people to have their voice in this series and everything. It's really exciting in all honesty. I'm really, we've been talking about this for a while, so I'm just glad to see it at E3. That's probably where it's going to be. And also, if your inbox is too clogged, please just put this in the E3 episode because chances are you're going to be talking about it again. But thanks for your time and see you soon.
Well, thank you, Eric. First of all, we might see it at E3. We might not. Please don't put that pressure on me.
Hyle, you cannot be responsible for the mental well-being of an entire fandom. I've been there.
How did this elephant get in here? How did this elephant get in here, and what's it doing on my chest? Oh, God. Well, okay, so there's a lot to unpack there. First of all, yes, the headlines have been saying Super Mario Odyssey team working on Donkey Kong. So let me clear up.
That is the sexy headline, okay?
That is the
I have a degree in journalism. That's a sexy headline.
That is the headline designed to turn people on or enrage them because they're not doing Super Mario Odyssey 2 by implication. Mm-hmm. So let me clear this up because I know, I've seen people get upset about, this is something that, Jeff, DK Vine's staffer, Jeff Onen, he's just been like, where are people getting this? We aren't saying that, and nobody's saying that. This is being done by Nintendo EPD. Yes, Nintendo EPD developed Super Mario Odyssey, but Nintendo EPD is not one team. It's not like Retro Studios makes Metroid Prime 3 and then makes Donkey Kong Country Returns. Nintendo EPD is comparable to old school Rare, where Rare had multiple teams doing multiple games at once. What this game probably is being developed by a new team that has devs being pulled from pre-existing teams. So yes, a couple people who did Super Mario Odyssey are probably now on this team, this Donkey Kong team. That is what I've been led to believe. That is also like where my educated guesses take over. If this is a permanent Donkey Kong team or not, that will be left to this game's success. But I think that this misconception that, the Odyssey team immediately went from Odyssey to Donkey Kong, it's not a one-to-one thing. So I think we just need to rid ourselves of that notion, right? So
it's all like so many problems. It's all an affectation of like search engine optimization and what people will click on.
Yeah.
Because if your headline says Nintendo EAD rumored to be making a new Donkey Kong game, yeah, people don't know what Nintendo EAD is. But if you say the team behind Super Mario Odyssey might be making Donkey Kong, like, that's people are going to click on that. People know what that is. People will find that. People will share that.
Sure.
But unfortunately, I think that has definitely led people to be like, to look at Mario Odyssey and sort of view what this might be through that lens. And it just, like you said, it doesn't have anything to do with it.
Yeah. It's led to some
may
salty
or may
Mario
not be
fans.
on that level. There's no way to know.
It's led to some salty Mario fans, like, how dare we not get Super Mario Odyssey 2 announced at E3?
Oh,
as
poor
if they
Mario fans, gee.
I know, as if they just didn't have a year of new releases. Like, come on. Like, I'm not trying to pit fandom against fandom, because I living through the Donkey Kong Country flop ill gall sneeze controversies of Donkey Kong versus Metroid. I don't want to relive that. Like, no, we're not going down that route again of having Nintendo fandoms pitted against each other as if, there are limited resources and we all have to fight. I mean, it's just nonsense.
I love Mario games, but I just can't imagine ever being in a position where it's like, damn it, we're not getting enough Mario games.
Yeah. So anyway, I don't think you have to worry. I think this is, a long time coming. I think, honestly, we should have seen the clues. Super Mario Odyssey referenced, name dropped so many obscure Donkey Kong things. Eric brings up, like, do you think they're gonna like go for like arcade references? Well, one, the retro games did that. The retro duology did that out the wazoo. I mean, it referenced the arcade games more than it did the country games. Honestly, like it, like I think outside of Cranky's gramophone, it really went out of its way to not reference a lot of the classic Donkey Kong Country games. But it was certainly fine referencing the first three Donkey Kong games, the arcade games, up to including Donkey Kong 3. So. I think, we're going to get like references to the total history of Donkey Kong, but I also think, you will see, look, Nintendo EPD, the Odyssey team, in which, there are probably team members pulled from this to work on this game. They referenced Radley in a Mario game, in a mainline major Mario game, the defining Mario game of this generation. Radley the Rattlesnake was referenced. K. Rool was referenced months before we found out he was coming back. So in retrospect, we should have seen that as clues. Like, we should have seen that as a big tip-off that, hey, something's up. Because this isn't just...
Hyle,
yeah.
Super Mario Odyssey is DKU. Like... I'm never going to stop banging that drum.
You know what? Maybe we'll reevaluate that after this game is announced. Like, I know Jeff, the aforementioned Jeff, has been, barking up my tree about that. Like maybe we need to reevaluate Super Mario Odyssey. He wasn't happy with the last trial in the DKU tribunal. So, maybe I'm saying I'm open to it. I'm still open to fucking making cameo elements of power DKU, because Chris Alcock is yelling at me about that. And I'm like, well, maybe you should have put a DKU character in it, Chris Alcock, if you wanted it to be DKU.
Anyway. This is going way off topic, but why does he think that? What's his reasoning?
Something about the ostriches in the game were taken from Saberman Stampede, which were the ostriches that originally Espresso variants in Donkey Kong Racing. And I'm just like, bro, that's not how it works. But then also you hear Banjo-Kazooie music on the radio, and maybe that's Banjo-Kazooie playing the Banjo-Kazooie music on the radio.
Ooh, yeah.
And if we view the DK rappers as genuine characters, and in Mr. Pants, it was broadcast on a television screen in Banjo-Tooie, and we view that.
Like, there's precedent for broadcasts being like appearances of DKU characters, so
look, I'm just saying I'm open to reevaluating things down the line, but I have too much on my plate right now.
All right.
All right. So anyway, I think that like we are going to get references more. I feel like EPD will be emboldened more than Retro was. I feel like Retro felt like they had to play it safe. They had edicts they had to follow, where EPD are the grand masters of Nintendo, so they can pretty much do whatever they want.
Well, just as much I would theorize that maybe Retro didn't want to overly reference the Donkey Kong Country trilogy because they didn't want to be like they didn't want to feel like they were in the shadow of those games, right?
Yeah, I can see that. And they definitely got more comfortable with it over time. I think had we seen a third game by them, we would have seen a lot more references. But like they wanted to bring K. Rool back at a time when they thought K. Rool was still like a no-no. And so, I think they would have pushed harder. And I think having their ears to the fan base would have like definitely emboldened them to say, no, hey, look, the fans really want this and they really want that. Just give us some wiggle room here. But I don't think EPD will really have that problem. There's definitely going to be filled with new stuff. And there'll be arcade references. Honestly, I think we will get more country references than we will Jungle Beat references. I think I've heard a lot of people saying, maybe we'll get a lot of Jungle Beat references because it's essentially, the same studio.
Yeah, but who outside of us remembers Jungle Beat? Yeah,
like I would be shocked if anything from Jungle Beat resurfaced. Honestly, I would. Especially if this is being driven by Donkey Kong Country fans or Super Donkey Kong fans.
Maybe it could be referenced through like Donkey Kong's Final Smash and Smash Ultimate.
Maybe, yeah. And granted, like I would love it if like Hoofer the Wildebeest came back or somebody, so long as that was mixed like alongside Engard and Professor Chops and Xananab and Clapper and Squitter. And like I want the full Stanley the Bugman. I want the full history represented, Josh. All right,
dude. I was watching a Let's Play of DKC2 a few weeks ago, and they sort of just dismissively they were like, you have to jump on this seal. I'm like, that's Clapper. You put
Clapper,
respect on his name.
Yeah. Eric brought up Donkey Kong Jr. and I'm gonna be bold and say no. I don't think we're ever going to see Donkey Kong Jr. We have arguments about whether the modern Donkey Kong is Donkey Kong Jr. all night long. Everybody who listens to this, who knows me well, knows where I stand on that issue. But as far as like the classic, like young little Kong in a onesie with a J on it, I don't think we will see anything but homages to that rendition of the character, and I think we look to Mario Kart Tour as proof of that. Mario Kart Tour also developed by Nintendo EPD, Josh, and the way they brought Donkey Kong Jr. back in that game was to have him be a retro sprite as he appeared on the Super Nintendo Super Mario Kart. They did not make a new model for him. They treated him as kind of this relic from back in time. And that is how Donkey Kong Jr. will be referenced. That's how the arcade games, I think, are going to be referenced going forward as, you have the mainline Donkey Kong franchise, which is ostensibly Donkey Kong Country, and then you have arcade Donkey Kong, which we'll tip our hat to and acknowledge, but always treat it as kind of this throwback thing.
Well, if the headlines had said, the team behind Mario Kart Tour rumored to be making a new Donkey Kong game, if those were the headlines, that would have been a whole different thing. But technically just as accurate.
Yeah. So, anyway, like, as far as the name goes, because Eric brought up, because I've heard like people say different things. Like, I've been led to believe it won't carry the country branding, but then Josh, Nintendo just did file a bunch of trademarks for Donkey Kong Country in Japan for all manners of goods. And, you know, I hear a lot of this talk about, well, it's developed by Japanese teams, so they're not using Donkey Kong Country because Donkey Kong Country was never a brand in Japan. But I think Nintendo recognizes that outside of Japan, Donkey Kong Country is a universally beloved moniker, right? Like, it's not just this thing where, well, we're Nintendo and we're a Japanese company, so we're not going to acknowledge how this game was marketed everywhere else. This game that, like, this series that Donkey Kong Country as a series originated in the West. So I feel like they feel like Donkey Kong Country, that branding has merit. Whether or not it actually carries that branding, I don't know, but I don't think we should be dismissive of the possibility. Maybe I was dismissive in my article, but, you know, I think the fact that they did just file a bunch of trademarks for Donkey Kong Country in Japan says something.
It does.
Maybe it was just routine trademark renewal, maybe, but...
I mean, I think what he brought up was the possibility that it could just be named after Super Donkey Kong, and I'd welcome that too. That'd be neat. In general, I wish more contemporary video game sequels would just put the word Super in front of the brand. We did get that with Super Mario Party, so there is precedent for a Switch game doing that.
Yeah, I like whatever it goes by, though. I think I have been led to believe, and I do believe this, that Donkey Kong Country, whether or not that name is used, Donkey Kong Country is the brand right now. It's not like we have this Cold War for Donkey Kong Soul, as I put it. Donkey Kong Country is the brand. Donkey Kong Country won out the wars. Arcade Donkey Kong is still like this valued part of its history, and it's still referenced and homaged. But whenever you see just Donkey Kong outside of like throwback sprites and girders, Donkey Kong is going to be like this, right? So
right. Yeah, fuck you, NES kids. The 90s won after all.
At least as far as Donkey Kong goes, right? Yeah. All right, but I think we touched upon Eric's points. I don't know. We go on these tangents and then we have to circle back around, and I get lost. Anyway, so thank you for the call.
Hey, DK Vine and Geek Critique. It's Rick here, and as usual, I gotta speak from the chest. You know, I gotta lay down how it is. All these Donkey Kong rumors, they're hogwash. Straight from Checkpoint's mouth. I just, you know, I gotta lay it out. As usual. And let you know, Nintendo hates Donkey Kong. They hate him. You know? Ever since Britannia did it better, Miyamoto, he looks at Donkey Kong, he sees that beautiful red tie, and he vomits. He vomits all over his employees. That's just how it is, guys, you know? I hate to say it, but gotta face the facts. Hold on. I'm doing a thing. Sorry, guys. Now, here's why he hates Diddy Kong, okay? He hates his... What? Sorry, guys. Let me check this out real quick. I'll be right back. Hello? I'm doing a thing. Hello? Whoa, no, I didn't mean none of that. Hold on, let me open my ear. What?
Well, thanks, Rick. I think that's more evidence that Nintendo EPD is working on the game since they sent their goon squad to eliminate him.
No, Hyle, that was clearly some sort of a funny satirical parody. Nintendo doesn't send a goon squad out to stop anybody, right? Come on, Hyle.
Rick doing the best impression of a DK Vine forum poster circa 2004. Thank you, Rick. No, that was spot on. Like that was what. Somebody check on Rick. No, Rick. Yeah, doing a bit there. I think that that is how we would have taken this news 15 years ago.
Oh, it would have been
17
apocalyptic, man. It would have been like,
yeah.
Oh, Nintendo's gonna take stewardship of Donkey Kong. It's over. That we lost.
We were like the biggest Nintendo fan site that hated Nintendo.
Yeah, I know. That's why I tell you, man, don't worry about like people coming to DK Vine now. Like when they say it's highly respected, like one thing that makes me smile about that is just like, you are, but also I remember what your reputation used to be.
Yeah, so when the day Donkey Kong Country Returns was announced, I saw people, like, I was like, I wonder what other people are talking about it. And people were, like, mentioning DK Vine on like, other message boards, saying, like, oh, I bet DK Vine hates this.
Yep.
Like we would just naturally hate it, right? Because that was what our reputation was. So it took 10 years, but we got from highly reviled to highly respected.
Yeah,
so,
like I said, I said this on Twitter the other day. There are advantages to having a fandom that skews a little older and has a little more experience, I think.
Yeah. Anyway, prayers for Rick. All right, we have one more call to take, and then I'll weigh on the 2D and 3D debate. So unless this call forces my hand up, but it's all going to coalesce into the ending of the episode anyway, Josh. So
excellent.
Here we go.
Hyle, Josh, Angry Ancestor. I'm currently operating a motor vehicle and a telephone simultaneously. I'm also drinking some apple juice. And let's see, what else am I doing? Oh, I'm following my taxes right now as well. Hope I can get those done. You know what I mean, guys? And I'm also taking a shit and I'm brushing my teeth all at the same time. Anyways, happy birthday, Hyle. Big day. I just wanted to ask, are they going to bring back the back riding system, like Diddy riding on Donkey Kong's back, or maybe we'll be able to play as Diddy Kong solo outside of some hard mode? What do you think of that? Also, is Lanky coming back? And goodbye. Happy birthday.
It's not my birthday. It's not even close.
Happy birthday, Hyle. I didn't know it was your birthday.
No, it's not.
I haven't gotten you anything.
And why have our calls descended into like people doing bits that are like fatalistic? I whatever. Thank you, Angry Ancestors. You don't sound too angry.
Well, he's multitasking. The anger is there. It's just under multiple layers of everything else that his brain is concentrating on right now.
All right, so first of all, Lanky, no, probably not. I like, again, don't like raise expectations. Like, oh, obviously we're gonna see Quawks and the Queen Banana Bird and Bachelor Bear and no, it's just like what this game will be, right, is room for growth. So I don't like expect to see every fan favorite meme-tastic character return in this game. But what this game will do is give us kind of a ground floor for expansion where, yeah, maybe down the road now Lanky can come back because there is a franchise to come back to. Mm-hmm. So think of it in those terms. If your favorite,
sort of similar to Returns itself, where you could see it as like, oh, but it doesn't have this, it doesn't have that, it's missing all of these characters, but like it's in a similar way, sort of, it's just establishing a baseline.
Yeah, unfortunately, we have to essentially do Donkey Kong Country Returns over again, and that's like, yeah, like it's not going to be that, sure. But it's going to be a different game entirely, and that speaks to your backwriting point. I think that people are going to, a certain subset of fans who think this is going to be a 2D platformer, which it might be, but they think it's just going to be Donkey Kong Country Returns 3, or like Donkey Kong Country Baja Blast, but made by EPD. That's not EPD style. They're not just going to do a sequel like that just comes after two other games. This is going to be as much of a reinvention as Returns was. Okay. And it's unfortunate that we have to have yet another soft reboot to the franchise, because that's what Returns was. And unfortunately, we got one sequel out of that, and then everything just kind of withered and died on the vine, no pun intended, via circumstance, and this gets us around that, though, because if this game takes off, we will never have to worry about that again.
Exactly. And that's sort of the crazy thing about it, right? Like, to put into perspective, like, how long it's been since Tropical Freeze, because, 2014 to 2021, that's definitely a long time, and it is, but it's the same length of time, it's about the same length of time, almost, from Donkey Kong Country 1 to the Rare buyout. Like, it's like, we're 1 year away from it being that same length of time since Tropical Freeze.
And granted, the game industry, as we said, has changed dramatically since the 90s. Mm-hmm. So the fact that we got in so much history in that time period versus now, we wouldn't have gotten annual releases.
I'm not
if there was stability.
I'm not bringing that up to like complain about it or say it should be different. More to say that, like, given how long it's been, we're probably more than due for another reimagining.
Yeah, and I'm just excited more. I'm excited about this game, but I'm excited more about the potentials for the future now, the room for growth that we have kind of been denied as a fandom and a franchise for close to 20 years now. And so, that being said, Angry Ancestor, in between the defecation and the tax filing, mentioned, do you think like Diddy is going to ride on Donkey Kong's back? It just depends what kind of game it is and what design philosophies this team has in mind.
Yeah, I would not look for it to have like anything more. Like, I think it'll have as much in common with Returns as Returns did with like the original trilogy. But I don't think it's going to feel beholden to anything that came before.
Sure. And I think that like the 2D versus 3D debate, honestly, like, I could see it go either way. I think that it would be a little bit out of character, in my opinion, for Nintendo EPD to make a new Donkey Kong game for the Switch when there's already a excellent 2D platformer starring Donkey Kong and friends on the Switch. Granted, it's just a Wii U port, but like, then to just follow with another 2D platformer that's maybe less difficult, or like, we don't know what they have planned, but it's just like, well, that's a bit weird. Like that's like, so my thinking, right, and this is just hypothetical, this is just educated guessing, is that it's going to be a little bit more than a 2D platformer. Is it going to be a 3D platformer? Maybe, but I think people hear Donkey Kong 3D platform and they think Super Mario Odyssey, but with Donkey Kong. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it's going to be quite that ambitious or that wide of a scope either. I think there's like some sort of middle ground to be had here. And we know the original version of Donkey Kong 64 was going to follow more of a Crash Bandicoot style of conception, it was going to have map screens, but within those map screens, it was going to have 3D, more linear levels, right? I think we could maybe see something along those lines. And I'm not just saying this because this is what we want, right? Like, oh man, that original version of Donkey Kong 64 sounds cool. Too bad they couldn't get that to work. Oh, now I'm going to project this on what Nintendo EPD is working on, because this is my fan dream for 3D Donkey Kong. But I think it's got to set itself apart from Mario. I think it's going to set itself apart from Mario because it's Nintendo EPD doing it. Nintendo EPD doesn't, repeat itself it's not something they're really known to do. So I feel like they need to carve out a niche for Donkey Kong. And from what I would guess, it would be something that is 3D-ish, but in a more linear fashion, similar to the Donkey Kong Country games. But I don't know. That's just where I think logically there would be room for Donkey Kong to have a cultural footprint on the Nintendo Switch, in light of Nintendo EPD also doing Mario games, albeit different teams, and there also being a really stellar 2D Donkey Kong port on the Switch already. But I want to hear what you have to say, Josh.
I mean, they could do that, but wouldn't it be even better and a lot more lucrative if we just put Nintendo EPD on Call of Duty?
This has been a File 2 production.
Que rico.